See, I need to upgrade and do what y'all do.
All right, we will call our meeting to order. Can we get roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good evening. Good evening, board members. Good evening, citizens, neighbors. Mr. Atkins Toff.
Here. Here.
Member Richard Blount. Member Carrie Bush.
Here.
Member Linda Dixon. Member Evelyn Fox.
Here.
Member Bando Grundy Gomez.
Here.
Member Jacob Idy. Member Christopher Merritt.
Trisha, did he get me that?
Member Jason Mitchell. Member Warren Nielsen.
Here.
Member Michael Palmer.
Here.
Chair Brett Pollitt.
Here.
Vice Chair Stephanie Seawright. Member Jessica Turner Evans. Mr. Chair, we have quorum. If I may, I'd like to remind the board, the board members, please, when you make a motion or second a motion, do raise your hand so that I can identify who you are. Sometimes I'm looking down and things are happening quick.
2 hands it is.
Not only one vote.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved.
Second.
All right, and a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Oh, you
Point of
want discussion
information.
on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Point of information.
What? I'm trying to, yes, go ahead. What do you need? Who asked that question?
Grundy. Member
No,
Grundy.
somebody's calling online.
Member Grundy was, I believe.
What was the question?
What I was going to ask, Mr. Chair, is if you're going to be hearing me if I do a second or if I make a motion, how is that going to work? Can you hear me clear or not?
I hear you now. I heard other people louder.
Okay. No, I'm just saying if I do or move or whatever.
Okay, I'll watch for you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we have discussion on the agenda.
I'm aware of some people who are here with extreme concern for the item that is presently the very last on our agenda. So I'm asking 201-167. I'm asking if we can move that to the front of the meeting, in respect for neighbors that, residents who came out for that item.
I second, Mr. Chair.
All right,
Is that a motion?
Yes.
sounds like it. I'm going to ask a question. Is the staff that is giving this presentation able to be here? They may have planned on being here at the end.
I don't think they're here yet.
He's supposed to show up for the whole meeting.
So we could,
That's right here.
so I'm not sure I have that option. We could table it, or we can wait until they show up and then add it to the agenda.
Do we know who we are waiting for?
It's the Collier Group and I think representatives from Cape.
I have a point of to Member Blount, some input if you might move it to the middle of the agenda. So that gives them time to be here. But I'm with Member Blount that we should definitely have the discussion, not at the end, but sooner than the end. So maybe the middle of the agenda.
I was just going to suggest we could go ahead and put it the first thing and then just
Come
skip
back to it.
until they come, and as soon as they show up, we go right to it.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll move it to the front of the agenda.
Acceptable.
So we have a motion and a second to rearrange the agenda, move the last item to the first. So that's the Power District conversation. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Not opposed.
Can I get approval of a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you.
There was a
Second?
motion already on the floor, Mr. Chair.
For the minutes?
Yes, by Member Blount. and second by
That was for the agenda,
adoption of the agenda. That's what we're
We
doing.
already voted for that.
So you voted to move the item to first on the agenda.
Oh, I see. You gotta do the agenda also. All right, so we've now moved I'm gonna go back. We've moved the item from the back of the agenda to the front of the agenda and approved that. Now we need to approve the agenda. Can I? And who was
So moved.
So it was,
And a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we're to the minutes. Does someone want to move to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Under communications, I just got one thing with the chair's report. There are a number of items on here tonight that do not require vote. They are placed on this agenda because this board has expressed interest in understanding what the status of a number of these projects are. It's a chance for us to give any feedback. I'm going to ask people, because it's a long agenda, to keep the feedback short, succinct. And I know everybody is knowledgeable of these items, but I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, hearing the same thing. So
Mr. Chair.
most of these don't require votes, so. Yes,
Is there anything we can add to the agenda, or not necessarily the agenda, but if for things that we want to bring back to review, because there's some things that for discussion that we had from the last meeting, and maybe we can hold for member comments, but definitely want to bring up, since there was a lot of stuff that happened at the last commission meeting that we should probably need to talk about, and we may not get to it tonight, but it definitely, I can hold a member comment that I would like to discuss.
that would be appropriate at member comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do I have a staff report?
Yep, I just have something quickly. Trisha Lopez, staff. I just wanted to let everyone know that the vacant seat for GCRAB will be filled at the June 3rd City Commission meeting. So those who applied have been invited to, sorry, there's an echo in the other room. It's a little distracting. They've been invited to speak to the commission. So if you're interested in watching, it's June 3rd at 1 o'clock.
All right. Is there a director's report?
Yes, sir. Yes, Chair. Thank you so much, Sarah Vidal-Finn. So I just have three things. Number one and number two are items that were approved at the May 6th commission meeting. So the first one was Akira Wood applied for a business improvement grant. And if you remember when you all approved the new program for the business improvement grant, it is streamlined so that if they meet the criteria, the approvals are different now. If they go over $100,000, which in this case, this one was because it was a historic building, or it is a historic building, it went to the city commission and got approved. And so once this work is executed, we'll be coming back and giving you all an update on the work that was done under the Business Improvement Grant Program for Akira Wood, and that's on South Main. Number two is the Heartwood item, which was on May 6th. The contracts were approved and we got the commission's blessing on the disposition of the property. So marketing has begun. The website was live last week. If you'd like to look at the website, it is heartwoodgnv.com. And the next event that we're having will be June 2nd. It's a virtual information session. So we'll be sending you all information to be able to attend that soon, very soon. And then the third thing is that we had a request from you all at the April meeting to hear an update on the Community Grocery Initiative. We have discussed that with Strategic Initiatives, and they'll be coming back to provide an update at your meeting next month in June. So just wanted to circle back on that. I think it was Member Palmer who requested the update. So that'll be next month. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Director. discussion for business items. The first item we have is Power District. Do we have the staff here to give that presentation? We do.
I did have a question for Ms. Vidal.
Okay.
Is it too late to ask her? Or
No,
we
she's
are
still
we
here.
done?
Ask the question.
Okay, Ms. Vidal, I have a question for you. So the one thing about the Heartwood update that I want to talk about that is imperative, that discussion, can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes.
Let me sure okay. That discussion that happened at City Commission with regards to Heartwood, we had a caller, a resident in our city call in, and it was a single mom, a widowed mother called in. I think you may recall watching that. We were both there at that meeting. She's like many of our residents. Tina Days is like many of our residents in our community, that there's been some concerns being expressed. What I would like to do, Ms. Vidal, is encourage you, staff, to strongly, in the most possible way, take that very seriously, because there is a move afoot regarding Heartwood that this is not for certain demographics of the community. When we have worked hard, staff has worked hard to make it all inclusive, and people that were traditionally locked out of state-of-the-art housing, it's being told to Black residents of the Black community that this is not for them. So I think it is going to be strongly imperative, and I've attempted to talk to project manager and other members of staff about this, including Mr. Wilburn, but it is concerning to me that I'm hearing it from a lot of residents, many. And so I don't know how we overcome that. So I just want to encourage you and the marketing team that we really address this head on and not run for this. We do not want to let that fester. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, member. And if you have any, if you know of any individuals who you could connect us with, we'd be happy to meet with them. And also, I would encourage all of you to, once we send you the information for the virtual information session, we will be addressing a lot of that information. So that'll be a good way for people to get their questions answered and for us to kind of get a clear message out. But thank you for the feedback.
Thank you. Any other questions for the director? All right, our first discussion then is the Power District. Who do we have to present? The phone?
The chair. I believe that Colliers was going to present this, but Caper may have been introducing them. I'm looking to see.
We moved it to the front. We realize it's out of sequence. And if they're not here, we'll proceed with something else. But if they are, we have a number of people that like to hear the presentation.
He's here.
I'm sorry, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes.
So this is Ken Krasnow from Colliers. I think our team is here, but Eric from Caper was, I don't know if the presentation, he was bringing it with him. So that might be the, I could try to share my screen, I guess.
Well,
I assume, Tricia on, does she have the presentation?
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay. And there we go.
Oh, there we go. Daniel has it. Thank you, Daniel.
so since Eric's not here, I'll give a brief introduction. We asked Colliers and Caper to come, and we've had several discussions, and the commission's had several discussions about Power District. We've asked them to come and explain what the process is now regarding the properties, how they're going to market what we have here, and for the community, what they're basing, explain a little bit about the 2013 plan that they're basing the qualifications off of. And so this is really an informational meeting for our commission. There's nothing on here requiring a vote, but it is an opportunity for us to voice anything we have to say. So I would ask you all to proceed then.
Great. I'm just making sure that my my team is with me. Rory is on. Okay, great. Well, yeah. Well, thank you for inviting us back. We were here a couple of months ago, and so today what we're going to do is give you an update of where we are in the process. maybe get into the weeds a little bit on the process and clear up any potential questions or misunderstandings in terms of our role here. And again, just for the record, so my name is Ken Krasnow. I'm the vice chairman at Colliers. I run the public institutions team, and we've been appointed as the city's real estate advisor. We've been working on a number of projects over the past 6 months and getting ready for the power district. So I don't know who is controlling the screen. There we go. Thank you. So the agenda tonight is, again, I know there's several new board members. And so what we want to do is just kind of reiterate a lot of the great work, groundwork, and actual recommendations that have already been approved by this board and by commission. And then we are going to talk about some recommendations that we would like to get your consent and approval on as we go forward in this process. Talk to you a little bit about considerations is really kind of the next steps of things that are going to need to get done, and then really get into the timeline, which again I think will give everybody some real comfort and understanding in terms of the process and what our role is, what your role is, what commission role, etc. But I think as we walk through the process, you'll really be able to understand that. And again, just for everybody's kind of clarification here, so Colliers is for all intents and purposes, we are a marketing company, right? We're not anointed, appointed, authorized by the city to do anything other than to, we're a worldwide organization. We've got offices in 60 countries around the world. Our goal as primarily a marketing company is to bring the story of what is a truly, transformative opportunity in the city of Gainesville, i.e. the Power District, to the world, make sure that people understand what the goals and the visions of the city and its residents are with this project, and encourage and solicit groups to bring forth those ideas. So with that, I'm going to introduce also Rory Casso, who's I think a number of you know from over the years. So Rory leads our team that's on the ground there in Gainesville. I don't know if he's in the room or not tonight, but Rory is going to take you through a little bit of the history, kind of where we are now, and a little bit of the next steps. So Rory, you are here, right?
Yes, Ken, I am here. I trust everybody can hear me. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight, and thank you, Ken. If Daniel, if you could move on to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So what you can see here are a number of words that identify some of the things that were accomplished in the past. So let me just kind of briefly review what some of these might be. We recognize that the East Side Operations Center allowed a lot of the GRU staff and facilities to move out to North Main Street. As a result of that, a great amount of the property that is now identified as the Power District is underutilized and has been designated as surplus property and therefore could be sold in order to be redeveloped. The Catalyst building was constructed a number of years ago, back in the days when Peoria was the original targeted entity to occupy that site. It's been occupied for the last 3 years with a department of the city of Gainesville, with a department from the University of Florida, and a company called Altavian. Those three entities have been leasing the Catalyst building, and we're still hoping that the Catalyst building will also be a catalyst for the Power District. And hopefully there's more to come from that entity. In 2013, the CRA commissioned a redevelopment plan. I think Perkins and Wills was the primary designer on the project, along with staff and the board. and a number of citizens were all involved in the creation of the redevelopment plan. And that is a booklet that is available to us, sort of the Bible for moving forward with how the property could and should move forward and what the vision for the ultimate use of the property would be. Since 2013, property was rezoned. A majority of the property now is either U9 or DT, which is downtown. Both in the Transact zones. Those two zonings are the most highest and intense zoning categories, essentially in the city's land development arsenal. The exception to that would be the McCrory Gardens, which is in the northeast corner of the property. It remains in a PS zoning, which is public service, which would limit significantly its redevelopment. Then there were some infrastructure assessments done, an infrastructure analysis, the daylighting of the Sweetwater branch, some building assessments, environmental analysis. Those were studies done, as you can see by the dates there, in 2015. They were prepared because in, I think it was 2017, the city submitted an invitation to negotiate, and there was data gathered in 2015 that was informing the developers that would be responding to that 2017 invitation to negotiate. The aesthetic improvements primarily were some resurfacing projects. Of course, the Kelly Power Plant has undergone additional improvements, even an improvement that is wrapping up probably this month if it hasn't already wrapped up. The CRA operated some programs and special events on the property during its downtime. One in the old warehouse building that's just north of the Catalyst building. And I'm sure there were other activities that were conducted during this interim period of time. I previously mentioned back in 2017, there were solicitations to developers to submit invitation to negotiate. The city was negotiating with two of those developers, and because of some technical reasons, essentially, those never came to complete fruition. And essentially, that's what we're picking up to reinstitute and hopefully reach the finish line with obtaining buyers for the property. Lastly, there was appraisals done on the property, again, preceding the 2017 dates. And then, of course, since 2017, the home run that was hit by the city with Depot Park, the private Cade opening, and then the South Main Street improvements, all developments that are occurring in the proximity of the Power District, which continue to add value and aesthetics to the area, as well as to the community at whole. So this was just sort of a snapshot of activities and things that have been done in the past that really tee up the opportunity that we're going to be talking about going forward. So if I could get you to change the slide. Thank you. In 2013, that redevelopment plan that was mentioned, there was identified what were the boundaries of what we now call the Power District. On the left-hand side, in the reddish color, the original boundaries of the Power District were the properties east of the GRU admin building, south of 5th, north of 4th. They were the properties that are east of the Kelly Power Plant, which include the Power District, what is now a vacant warehouse building, a large parking area, and another small building along the Depot Park. But it was between Depot Park and 5th. And then there was also an area that is south of Depot that has often been referred to as a parking area, but it's a large paved area. Maybe GRU has used it for parking or laydown, but it's behind Lewis Oil, and that large area is accessed by a driveway on the west side of Lewis Oil. So those properties were the original boundaries in the 2013 redevelopment plan. In 2019, the City Commission approved the expansion of the Power District to include the properties that are illustrated in the map on the right-hand side of the image that you're looking at. It included a GRU storage yard, some additional area south of Depot and adjacent to that large paved area. It did include a portion of the Kelly Power Plant, up to the driveway that's an internal type driveway that you can see that is west of the catalyst facility. And then that approval back in 2019 also include the GRU admin building at the corner of, I think is 3rd and 4th. And it also included the parking lot that is on the west side of the GRU admin building. So as of 2019, that's the collective area that was approved by the commission to call the power district. So both of these are historical maps identifying the power district. And then the last slide that I will review before handing it back to Ken would be the next slide. If you could turn to it, please. Thank you. And so what we are proposing moving forward, well, how do we take those properties that we just identified to market to include in a request for qualifications? And you'll see later on in this presentation, the term request for qualifications will be re-identified and re-communicated. So suffice it for now, I wanted to dwell on the properties that we would include. So the core property, as we are referring to it, are the areas that are shown in blue. The areas that are shown in blue on this map, again, what we are calling the core property offerings, approximately 16 acres, and that is the original boundary from 2013. I want to point out specifically in the northeast corner, the McCrory Community Garden. It has a different color, a butterscotch type color as an overlay to that blue. It's inside of that 7.3 acres that is labeled just north of it, but with McCrory Gardens PS zoning, and then clearly communicated in the community goals and objectives, the community garden would not be part of redevelopment unless it was an enhancement of the community garden. So the intent is for the McCrory Community Garden to be preserved or enhanced, but not redeveloped to become buildings or other improvements as the balance of the property may become. So the core property includes the GRU storage yard to the extreme south. It includes the property surrounding the Catalyst building, which is currently occupied by a vacant GRU warehouse building, and includes the properties surrounding the McCrory Garden. That includes the GRU fleet building, a couple of small office building, and then what is mostly open space, not paved nor buildings. Again, all of that totaling up to about 16 acres. And then we want to give proposers who would submit in response to a request for qualification to indicate whether they would want to add on to the core property and include additional properties. And the additional properties that could be included do include the properties that were identified in the approved expanded boundary by the commission in 2019. And I'll specifically identify those. That's the GRU admin building up in the upper left of the drawing we show, which is the northwest corner, and the GRU parking lot located to the west of the GRU admin building. South of Depot Avenue, the GRU storage yard, 1.4 acres, again, part of the expanded boundary. And then more recently, based upon other conversations and based upon the disposition of where the city is today, we are recommending that other properties to be included would include the Catalyst property itself, which is a little over an acre. It could also include the Rosa Parks downtown bus station, which is a little over 2 acres and located west of the Cali power plant. In that case, the use there would be restricted to maintain the current function, but could build vertically above that current operating facility. And then the last area, and probably new to most that are looking at this, the city has indicated its desire to sell the old RTS facility, which is where RTS bus maintenance did occur. Of course, that has been displaced and moved to an area further to the south a number of years ago. This facility has become surplus, and the city would like to sell it or see it redeveloped. It's contiguous to Depot Park, located south of Depot Park. It's shown here on the map as the former RTS facility. It's 10.3 acres. So based upon the request and the identification of this as surplus property and placing it on the market, we would like to give developers the opportunity to include that property inside of the Power District request for qualifications. Then it could be developed concurrent with the balance of the Power District and in concert with the goals and objectives of the Power District. So, Mr. Chair, those are some properties that we are recommending to be included in the Power District. So at this point in time, we do have additional presentation to present, and Ken is going to proceed on with the presentation.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Rory. And Mr. Chair, we will come back for discussion and an actual sort of affirmation. But you know, one of the parts of the going back and making sure that everybody's on the same page. Clearly, the first part that Rory touched upon, which is the boundaries in terms of what's included and what could be included, is critically important, and that message has got to be clearly communicated to the market. The other message that's got to be clearly articulated and communicated to the market are these redevelopment goals, which, again, as part of your agenda packet today, you have the original redevelopment plan that Rory referenced. These goals are effectively a synopsis, I think, on pages 5 through 7 of, again, all of the community input and so on and so forth. These were also presented to this board July 15th of 2019 in terms of being reaffirmed and recommitted. And so again, just to make sure that we are crossing every T and dotting every I and making sure that everybody understands that what went in to the original goal of this power district is going to be clearly communicated and articulated. And I will get into the process, but you'll see how critical these goals are in terms of moving the process along. So I'm not. I don't need to necessarily read every one of these goals. I'm sure you've seen them in various kind of iterations. But Mr. Chair, I saw I don't know who the email was from earlier today, a community activist, I would assume, who said there's some concern about how this property literally and figuratively is in the city, in the middle of the city, and how critically important it is. And we believe that wholeheartedly. And they were they listed a whole bunch of concerns, and then they listed what they said, what we would like to see. There were 12 items on the what we would like to see. All of them are reflected in these goals, albeit there was mention of basketball court and tennis courts and other recreational, which you can see is not part of the original goals. And then there was something about parking for Depot Park, which again in 2013 Depot Park was maybe a vision, so it wasn't reflected there. But everything else, mixed income, small buildings, complementing the existing communities, daylighting of the creek, all of these critically important goals are core to the offering that we again would like to get reaffirmation from this board, and then ultimately with commission, because as you'll see as we go through the process, these are the goals that the developers are going to be held accountable to as we go forward. So it's critically important that we articulate them and communicate them to the market as clearly and as strongly, as possible. So the property boundaries are obviously very important. People have to know, what they're bidding on, and they also have to know what is critically important to the community in terms of the development of this, of this critically important, site. So those two areas, making sure that, this board is comfortable with the property boundaries and the way that we're going to talk about the offering. And then obviously also making sure that these are the goals that we want to see as part of the redevelopment. If there are new goals, if there are, things that don't apply anymore. Again, this was from 2013. It was reaffirmed a number of times, subsequent to that. But before we go out to the market, we wanted to make sure that everybody understands and has the opportunity to opine and give their perspective on these goals. So I will come back to that at the end of our presentation. I do think it's important to walk you through a little bit in terms of the next slide is kind of the next steps, as we go forward here. So yeah. And again, this is some of this is just more of the, some technical stuff. But again, in terms of keeping this board informed as part of the process as we move, each step along the way, we thought it was important. So once we are going to update the memorandum of understanding between GRU and the city. As you can see here, we need to update the appraisals. We need to update all of the infrastructure and building needs assessment that were done, 5 or 6 years ago, and there's been some significant deterioration. We are going to go to management and/or the commission to, basically determine the funding sources, for these updates, but these ultimately will be critical information that any proposer or any developer, especially on the infrastructure and the building needs assessment, will need to make their proposal. So that's kind of where we are in terms of some of the the next steps. I do think that the timeline, and we'll really give you a good, on the next slide, we'll give you a good overview of kind of the process. Just by way of disclosure here, all of these dates are going to be sliding a little bit slightly, and I'll get into that. But obviously, we're here today at the advisory board meeting. We do plan to bring this item to City Commission in July, not June. And then probably sometime in August or September, issue the request for qualifications. So again, let me just kind of make sure that everybody is clear in terms of what the request for qualifications were, which is actually what the GCRA, the city did in 2016, which Rory said then, solicited responses from a couple of developers. So we are effectively, kind of taking the baton, but it's effectively the same process that you were going through before. So in the RFQ, the request for qualification phase, we go out to the market. Again, we cast this wide global net. We tell the market what is so special about Gainesville, what's going on in the market. We very clearly, as we went through on those other couple of slides, reiterate to them what they're able to offer on, bid on, and what equally, if not more importantly, what the project goals and the vision of the city, the board, and its constituents are, because they are then going to be able to put together their conceptual plan. There are a number of criteria that we will be asking for in the RFQ phase. We will be looking for, their experience, their qualifications, their financial capability, all of the things that were originally in your original RFQ would continue to be part in our new solicitation. During this time, we would also, working in concert with the board and commission and management, in all likelihood, an evaluation committee would be established, and we would establish some criteria that would be able to, so when these responses come back in the fall, we would be able to rank the respondents based on their conceptual plan. How does it align with the vision? Have they done this before? Do they have a realistic timetable? Do they have the wherewithal to spend, the hundreds of millions of dollars that are needed to execute, on this plan? So all of that process is very similar, almost identical, dare I say, to what you did in 2016. We are just taking all of that information. Again, we've redefined the property boundaries a little bit, and we are casting this, really wide net to get, a number of respondents back. So in the period of, let's call it October, as you'll see there, the short list. So if we got back, let's say 10 responses as part of the RFQ phase, and we update the evaluation committee. Again, this is not, Collier's role. There's an evaluation committee that will be made up of staff, of board members, of a bunch of different people that will evaluate the responses that come back in and determine that, pick a number, 3, 4, 5 of them, really do meet all of the goals and objectives that, we laid out in the RFQ. Those shortlisted would then be asked to the invitation to negotiate phase. And that's where we really, cross our T's and dot our I's and get into specifics about, if we're talking about affordable housing, how many units, how many are going to be at a certain AMI level, all of the specific details, what they're going to pay for the property, what they're going to, so all of the issues of a financial and much more detailed nature will be drawn out during the invitation to negotiate phase. So again, we've taken the broad goals, we've gotten conceptual plans, we've identified which 3 to 4 to 5 groups fit the requirements. We've asked them to then kind of sharpen their pencils and tell us exactly how they're going to do this, what they're going to pay, how many units they're going to be, delivered at a certain rate, how they're going to accommodate small businesses, how they're going to, all of the goals that we laid out are going to be much more detailed oriented during the invitation to negotiate phase. And then ultimately the same evaluation committee and commission will choose, sometime in presumably, first quarter of next year to move into the final stages of entering into a development agreement with the one group that of the group that came in through the ITN phase to move into final development negotiations. So again, I threw a lot of stuff out there, and I know we will have time to go through questions and so on and so forth. But again, and you will see before we go out with an RFQ, you will see it. Again, it'll look very similar to what you put out in 2016, but we add a lot of the bells and whistles and all of the marketing prowess. And then we would go out at some point. We would probably have a before the bids are due, we would have a pre-proposal conference. So you would again be able to kind of hear what some of the developers are thinking about or asking questions about. And again, this evaluation committee and the matrix that we will work with you to help set up will again focus on the team, the qualifications, the experience, their financial capability, how really closely aligned their conceptual plan is with the goals and the vision. So again, this is a very methodical process. It's a very transparent process. The board or selected representatives of the board are going to be involved in this, every step of the way. And that is, I think, the essence of our presentation in terms of where we are. So just before we get into any conversation, questions, concerns, etc., we are looking for two action items, essentially. We want to reiterate and confirm the property boundaries and make sure that the boundaries are very clearly defined. Again, we're going to go out with a core offering. We'll call that the Power District, and then the other properties that a developer could choose to include in their response or not. And then to reaffirm those project goals that you've, again, seen started with community input in 2013, reaffirmed later on. But again, just to make sure that, everybody understands that what we're going to be communicating to the market are, in fact, the community's goals and desires and wishes. We do want this board to kind of reaffirm those goals, so that when we go to commission, we understand that we're going with your consensus or your direction. So I think that's our last slide. Yep. Mr. Chair, I throw it back to you for if you want to go through questions and so on and so forth.
All right.
Thank
you for your thorough presentation, and especially explaining the steps that you're intending to go through and how you're going to proceed. I'm going to start with the dais, and then I'm going to go online, and then we'll go to public. I'll start with the dais if there's any comments or questions that we want to leave. I don't see any here.
Have one.
Okay, there we go. Let's start to the left.
Okay, I guess I'm the furthest left. I've been the furthest left for a long time. Well, I have quite a bit to say, as I'm really familiar with this neighborhood. If you see where McCrory Garden is on your drawings, on the corner immediately east of that garden is a home I moved into in May of 1988. So I'm a little familiar with the area. As it happens, this neighborhood has had an active residents organization at times over the years, particularly when GRU would announce intention to turn that block where McCrory Garden is into a heavy equipment yard. Something they did several times over the years before the garden existed. That block where you see the McCrory Garden is the top 3/8 of a block that on city maps is shown divided into 8 double frontage home lots facing facing 6th Terrace and the former 6th Street. 6th Street, in fact, half the pavement, the southern half of the pavement of 6th Street was retained to access the employee parking that GRU created on the south part of the block. So they're talking about restoring the pavement above that to open 6th Street all the way up, which a lot of the neighbors in the area are concerned about the racetrack kind of connection that would probably happen if that became clear, through street clear through. But the big thing is about what the neighbors of this area expected. Back around the turn of the century, when so much was happening with planning grants for Depot Park, I was actually part of a hired team of community outreach people to go out to neighborhoods and talk about the future of Depot Park, the features people would want in it, how long the process would take, etc., to get surrounding neighborhoods engaged in the park and its development. And one of the activities that was held was a community design charrette held in the general purpose room at GRU, where something like 60 or 70 residents of the area gathered in, broke up into groups of 7 or 8 people, and gathered around 10 aerial photographs of the area, and were told by city staff and officials, draw what you envision for the future of this neighborhood, not just the park, but all around it. And we promise, they use that word, we promise to fulfill your highest priorities. Every single one of those drawings showed that entire block, the whole, what I described, the 8 lots, McCrory, the 3/8 north end of the block, and the 5/8 below that had been turned into employee parking. Every one of those drawings showed that green space restored to the trees and grass unofficial park that it had been for 60 plus years before GRU created employee parking. The second most favorite selection was daylighting the creek. And everyone envisioned continuing, if you look over there now, from University Avenue down to 4th Avenue along the creek. East of the creek, you have a park, a strip park with sidewalks, benches, even a tot lot. Very nice park-like atmosphere. And so the vision was to daylight the creek and continue that park and connect all the way down to Depot Park. That would accomplish some of the ideas about networking city pathways, the bike paths, the walking paths, the creek itself. And again, this group of neighbors was told that they would get their highest priorities fulfilled. Well, in this very room, I think it may have been 3.5 years ago now, maybe almost 4 years, some of the neighbors, some of the people here today, came back to remind the commission at that time of his promise. And we were told, where's the records? Y'all made this up. You're trying to do a land grab. Now, how ludicrous was that to accuse a bunch of neighbors and a bunch of residents in a neighborhood who are looking at land that's already owned by the city and wanted to continue in general use for everybody? How is that a land grab? So I forget if it was, does anyone remember? Was that Carter or who said that? Does anybody remember? it was a really off-the-wall remark. It showed that they were pretty out of touch with what we were talking about. But neighbors in that area, and I don't know if they're going to get to speak since we're not voting a motion. I wish they get to say their statements. There's 5 or 6 people here at least. Neighbors in that area were wanting to continue the pattern of development in relation to that creek. That is, everything east of the creek would be green space, and that segueing into low intensity residential as it is today. And indeed, on the slide about reaffirm the 2013 redevelopment goals, complement the adjacent surrounding neighborhood. There's nothing in that neighborhood over 2 stories. Well, except the bed and breakfast. There's a couple of mansions. I take that back. Some of those are tall. But other than that, this is a neighborhood of 1- and 2-story construction. And now we're told that not only are we not going to get that park-like space back that we were promised, but that garden is liable to be ringed with 3-story, 6-story, 8-story. We're getting lots of different stories of what's going to be looming over that garden. And I don't see much about the survival of the garden with that kind of activity around it, with traffic of a restored 6th Street, with tall buildings just across a narrow street from it, and just south of it on that same block. So we've seen a number of things the city or city staff have been permitting lately that have really made people upset, like the Starbucks in Suburban Heights that was going to have a drive-through into a neighborhood. The Waffle House on East University that's going to spill out the back of the property onto a residential street right into someone's driveway on a block with a daycare center. GRU trying to foist now 3 attempts at solar farms on historic black neighborhoods over near Archer who don't want it. So it seems that people in this city, property owners, residential property owners, should be on notice. If they're near any through street, if you're within a block of a through street or any interesting looking potential commercial development, your property values, once appraisers get a hold of what this city is doing, your property values are going to maybe if not decrease, increase much more slowly, because the interests and lifestyle of residents is kind of being tossed to the wind. It's like, well, whatever goes. If we can get somebody to spend something in the city, we'll do it. You know, write your own ticket. Spend money, write your own ticket. So residents need to know that they count. And that's why 5 or 6 people from that neighborhood are here tonight, because they have tried to address this a number of times for some years now. And it seems that everything new that comes out shows no sign that they ever said a word. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question as well as a couple of comments. First, on slide number 5, I don't know if it's possible to pull that back up, but unfortunately for the audience, the orange overlay of the McCrory Community Gardens wasn't visible because the Zoom screen is over it. So I don't know if you can move that little box, but I think it'd be helpful so that we can see that orange. Yep, thank you. So up in that upper right-hand corner in the section of orange, where the McCrory Community Garden currently is located, first, I really appreciate Member Blount's comments. And, where you were, kind of going in terms of some of the previous conversations that were important to the neighborhood was, what I had started thinking about and even kind of drawing on this map that I have here in front of me is, would it be possible to basically extend that orange, that orange space that's restricted from development, even in the marketing documents, if this were to move forward, and create an amenity for the neighborhood in a buffer zone, but make it clear on the documents so that way everybody understands that that's off the table, right, from the get-go. So I don't know if that's possible. That was just, I literally had a little box drawn around that area and thinking that could be a win-win situation, that, the neighborhood gets an amenity. The daylighting of the Sweetwater Branch Creek is a priority. It seems to flow with that perspective and opportunity to make that connectivity in that particular area. So that was just one question, I guess, to staff or whomever is, could we, in this map, extend that orange space to visually be restricted from development? And then my other two questions or points, I guess, I'd be interested to hear from the neighbors and interested parties in this, if any of the properties south of Depot Avenue are of concern. And the reason why is I'm thinking that that's more of an industrial space in that south of Depot Avenue area, but I would just like to hear your feedback on those properties, if we're looking at it any differently, south of Depot Avenue versus north of Depot Avenue. And then my last comment is just related to the Rosa Parks downtown station, and that one gives me some pause in terms of including it in the materials. Only I would like to understand from staff how that would affect the operations if we were to include that in the properties. It would seem that it would set off dominoes, right, and operationally, of what that transfer station and the downtown Rosa Parks station would be. And I don't know how critical it is. Do we need to include it? Is it really critical that we include that downtown Rosa Parks station? And would it be, worth the cost benefit, the trade-off of, the current users to the system and what the future goals of that property could be? So I would like more information about that Rosa Parks station, because I don't understand exactly how the operations that it currently exists there would be impacted if it were to be included in this plan. Thank you.
Okay. Come back. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had quite a few notes, and I first need to understand the position of the Collier Company, and then I understand they are the real estate company for the city of Gainesville. They don't actually build anything. However, they sell off all the properties that the city owns. Is that correct? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't own anything. We don't build anything. We are just the facilitator for what the city directs us to do. If the city asks us to sell a piece of property, we, just like you would hire an agent if you were going to sell your house. So that is our role. And so in this dynamic, once the properties are determined, then again, if McCrory is extended and it becomes not part of the solicitation or restricted, that's part of what we would be instructed to go out to the market with. So we take directions from the board, ultimately from commission.
Thank you. And then my follow-up question is, so you are being paid a great sum of money by us, the citizens of the city, to be the marketing firm. Are you local, or where is your company based out of? Do you have local people working for your company?
Yeah, we have an office on, what's it, Rory, 7th Street?
Southwest 7th Street.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I would
we are,
say, I would also say, Ken, you know, from a commission perspective, the way our contract reads with the city, our contract comes as a commission from, in this case, the buyer would be responsible for paying our commission. We don't have a contract where the city pays our fees.
correct.
Okay, so you're not being paid anything by the city of Gainesville, it's the buyer once the property is sold?
Correct.
Okay, now, the plan was first presented in 2013. I am thinking, based on what I've heard, and I did attend a neighborhood meeting, that this plan needs to be revised and have some community engagement. Now, Member Blunt just said that they have forgotten everything that you all had in the meeting some time back. So I'm thinking that we need to listen to the neighbors and get some recommendations from them. Although the letter that was sent to us today, there were some things that they recommended. Now, what kind of buildings are going to be built? I heard 13-story high-rise. Is that possible, or once you have sold that property to whoever the buyer is, then they could put whatever type of structure, if it's 13 stories or 5 stories, it's going to be left up to them to do whatever they want to do? That's the question.
No, they will have a conceptual plan first and foremost. So in the conceptual plan, you will see the nature and the mix and the diversity of the buildings that they are proposing. And then ultimately, we're going to get into more detail with the selected finalists, and then the ultimate developer that would ultimately be chosen would have a very specific plan. But even that, you know, even though that plan is going to be going through a number of checks and balances, so to speak, in terms of making sure that it complies with your vision, the ultimate developer still needs to go to planning and zoning and the whole, you know, basic process. So, you know, that is something that, you know, even if this wasn't city-owned property and somebody bought it and wanted to build a building there, they'd have to go through the city, the planning and zoning, and make sure that it complies with all of the applicable codes and regulations and so on and so forth. So we're going to come up with a plan, but then ultimately they're still going to have to go through normal city, protocols and approvals to get anything, built.
Okay, so the neighbors, the people that's been there 30, 40 years, they won't have any say-so on what's going to be built next to them once the property is sold. I know they have to go through planning and all of that, but will the people in that community have any say-so on what kind of buildings would be next to them?
Yes, all of those plans are brought forth for public hearings. And again, I don't have the specifics of your planning, but I mean, in generally in every municipality, if somebody was going to build a project, it's going to be brought before planning and zoning, and then there's got to be some, public hearing and input, and ultimately, that process will go through. But public input is always going to be part of that development process.
Okay, because a part of the property that you showed is in a historically black neighborhood. And we're back to gentrification, where things are coming into our neighborhoods that we don't know anything about. So I think my recommendation is go back to the drawing board and come up with some concrete, specific designs and what we would want there, not just what the buyer wants to put there. We don't need any more student housing in our area. In fact, someone was here about 3 months ago from Grace, and they said by December of this year, there will be 19 100,000 homeless people in Gainesville. We don't have a shortage of housing in Gainesville. What we do have is housing that people cannot afford based on the income that they're making. So we don't want anything, the big high rises like you have, a couple have been stucco for next to where Jackie live, I think it's on 10th. And we didn't know anything about it until the building came up, and it's like 3 stories. So I think we need to have some community engagement and kind of listen. I believe in listening to the people. We are the city of Gainesville. These people in the audience, they are the city of Gainesville. And I think they should have some input on what's going to be built in their neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please, Ms. Plum.
All right, thank you. I had a couple questions just around, I guess first, the decision-making process for the different boundaries. One of the things I wanted to at least reiterate from my outside view going, around the last process was that when they were going through the making decisions between 2 different developers who were including a lot of the same pieces, I heard consistently how difficult it was for them to make decisions between the 2 because they were considered apples and oranges, if I'm quoting correctly. So I guess I'm wondering how we might approach if, for example, one developer comes in, is like, great, I'm going to give you a price for the core offering, and then another developer that's more or less the same type of thing says, I'm going to do that, but I want to do it with not so great of a price of the GRU admin building or something like that. How are we approaching things that are going to be nuanced differences that the only really way to maybe make sense of them is financial analysis, or how is that process going to look?
We will complete a pretty detailed financial analysis that will compare, the various alternatives and try as best as we can to give you an apples to apples, evaluation, because like you say, somebody's going to come in and just offer X for the core. Somebody will come in and offer X for the core and Y for the, X, pick a property. And we will, again, it's not an exact science, but there are financial considerations, there's community considerations, there's other, aspects of it that we will try to bring into an evaluation matrix that we will present to the selection committee and to the boards, and ultimately give you guys the best information so that you can make, an informed decision.
Okay. I'm wondering if we're looking at some of the kind of the redevelopment goals. I feel like, especially considering since where we were in 2013, I think one of the things that seems like it's really lacking from this, just as far as the way the culture has developed, is probably more of a statement from these developers on their approach to ethics, hiring, and really, if we can get a philosophical statement from them, we might be able to get a little bit better sense of what the developer might be trying to bring to the table and some of our overall goals. I think that'd be easier for a lot of us to, I know people can just kind of make up whatever, put it on there and follow it or not, but at least if we have them put some sort of an ethics statement, we might be able to have a little bit more of a, better stomach for what happens.
That's a good point. And there was also, a pretty detailed section with regards to references. So we'll be going into the other communities where they've built other projects and see how they've performed and if they've met their goals and if they've, done what they said they're, supposed to do.
Okay, great. And the last thing, this might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves as far as trying to define price and really nailing down what we're going for this. In my opinion, the city of Gainesville hasn't been say, very skilled when it comes to negotiations with certain properties or creating deals that end up, you know, causing $900 million worth of debt or whatever that number was. So I think I'd like to have a little bit more familiarity with what the negotiation is going to look like, but I think something that would help frame value for people here. And when we're approaching this, I guess for the next time we see this, I'm hoping you could maybe put together something about the opportunity zones, how any of the developers plan to use the opportunity zones or leverage the opportunity zones for this development. Because, I mean, if we're looking at, 16 to 26 acres, we're, $100 million development, who knows what the cash price for the land is, but that represents a massive opportunity to offset capital gains for whatever developer is going to be coming in, where, if they're willing to hang on to it for 10 years here, they could be making, $5-10 million just by letting money park and sit for 10 years. So I think that's a very, very important part of this discussion that we need to have included on here, because that really is going to help define value for people as we market outside of Gainesville. So I guess that would be my request for the next steps for the next meeting would be a statement on the opportunity zone and and the potential financial ramifications of that for people, because that's a massive, massive opportunity for people, or for, tax stuff. Yeah, but I think that's everything for me.
Thank you. Member Grenda Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off and foremost, I want to say that this is a very different type of presentation than what I heard a week ago from Colliers, Mr. Krasnow, and some others when it came to Lot 10, which is refreshing because it led to a lot of questions and concerns, and who is being brought to the table, especially when it comes to areas of equitable development. A lot of folks like to operate in platitudes and talk about things like gentrification, but I want to narrow down some things that what we're not hearing, right? What we're not hearing is a few things. I heard some punting going on when it came to community engagement. And so I just want to back us up a little bit. Let's back that truck up just a little bit more, and let's talk about community engagement. Our friends and neighbors, this is right down the road from my home, number one, my friends and neighbors. So if we go down Southeast 7th, it goes right into our community. This is going to have a major impact, not just on Sugar Hill, Porters, many of our friends and neighbors, and not just the Power District. So it's not just if you happen to live there, my neighborhood, it's our neighborhood. It's our community. This is not about I, my, or me. Those words don't agree. Us, we, and our inclusive, and I want to include the bigger picture here, number one. So I'm going to ask a series of questions. I don't know if this will be Mr. Krasnow or who can help out, or if it's Rory Casso, but help me understand the community engagement strategy for the new footprint. And when I say the new footprint, because in a few of your slides, Mr. Krasnow, Mr. Casso, you talked about the new optional areas when it came to the optional pieces of this development within the Power District. That's question one. Question two is, where's the money coming from? And what is the cost going to be for the areas, specifically the new areas listed as optional? Because if you go to page 7 and you unwind these, where does cost and where's the money coming from? And I'd like to know that, because as with anything, we don't have unlimited funds. And if everybody's been paying attention the last couple of weeks, we're seeing we're seeing the major budgetary crisis we're going to be going through as a community in this city with the confines of the discussion of GRU. So monies are going to be a big discussion right now. That's number two. So number three, Mr. Krasnow, is if you can walk me through the selection process of how you went through this. What was the selection process of how you came up with these specific areas and sites, and how is that, and who was at the table? Number four is, what is the selection process for how a vendor is going to be selected? Because you brought up the fact that there's going to be an evaluation committee, which is great. That's really good, by the way. But who is that going to be encompassed? Because my concern is the elected officials who would be the city commission that should not be acquiesced to somebody outside. That should be part of that process with the city commission, worked in conjunction with the city commission. My concern is with you, and this is no, Mr. Krasner, I want to be very clear. This is nothing at you, right? Not an aspersion at you and Mr. Casso, but it just seems like we have an added level of bureaucracy when it comes to how we're wanting to address and deal with things, in as much as whether it be real estate, who's selected, because things are getting put on consent agendas, not on consent agendas. It just seems like there's too many clandestine discussions, and the best disinfectant for that is sunshine. So when we're talking with our friends and neighbors, those folks that you see right there in the chambers, the ones that I talk to on a daily basis, the ones who emailed us, I took Ms. Montilla's email today very seriously. I attempted to reach out to Ms. Montilla today. I wasn't successful, but I listened to Ms. Montilla and other folks that look just like her, and others, because they're important to me. They're important to me. So if you could help me understand some of those questions, because what we can, I'm sorry, somebody said something. What we cannot do, I want to come back to Member Blount's point. There is a historical significance that somehow seems to be lost in some of the presentations. That's not necessarily your fault, Mr. Krasnow, but these are important things that our friends and neighbors care about, because some of these things you may not know, but the institutional knowledge comes in from folks that live there, who have been involved in the process, and it is imperative that we are all inclusive and not exclusive. So when we use terms like gentrification, I don't want to use that loosely, okay? Because it, to me, is about equitable development now more than ever. And to narrowly define that, because I hear some of our members use terms, that seems to be the flavor of the month when it comes to the word gentrification, right? But you and I both know, you work in real estate, and I know some others that are on staff that work in real estate. Communities go through ebbs and flows and naturally evolve over time. We know that. But what we cannot do is sit here and displace, especially communities of color. And when I say narrowly, I'm going to narrowly define what communities of color. I am talking about historically African-American communities, because people like to use the term people of color very loosely. But when it comes to historically African-American communities, there seems to be just an allergy and not an appetite for being inclusive when it comes to the needs of people of color. So my questions, Mr. Krasnow, if you want me to reiterate them again, I shall, unless they were very clear. One, help me understand the community engagement strategy. I don't want to punt it. I want to get a clear, narrowly defined on what that is. Two, where's the money coming from and the cost for areas, specifically the new optional areas. Three, walk me through the selection process and who is at the table. And four, what is the selection process going to be for the vendor, and how is that going to be selected? And I digress. Thank you. I wait your answer. I may have a follow-up, Mr. Chair, based on his answer. Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate your questions, and I don't take anything personally. We're establishing a new relationship. I just want to make sure, and I reiterate, we are on the same team. And so, we want to get your engagement and your feedback so that we can do our job most efficiently and effectively as possible. So let's start in no particular order. You talk about community engagement. So what we've been led to believe, again, why we're kind of reiterating the 2013 goals, and they've been brought back to this board as recently as 2019, was the result of the community engagement. And if I read, and I take Ms. Montilla's, response, seriously as well. So I saw that today. And as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, she said very clearly what the community wants. And if you look at that, there were 12 things listed on that list. 10 of them are listed in our community redevelopment goals. So from our perspective, a lot of this community engagement has been incorporated. We just want to make sure that it's still relevant and it's still, nothing has changed. And if we want to add more areas around, we talk about small, diverse development, if we want to add inclusive, if we want to add other types of qualifications, we can do that. That's the purpose of kind of having this goal. But I was pretty encouraged when I read through her email and I saw 12 things that the community wants, and other than parking, which, you know, is a kind of a detail that something's going to get worked out, you know, later on the road. But the big picture issues were covered in the redevelopment goals. So that's the kind of the community engagement part. And again, part of community engagement is what we're doing tonight, and making sure that, you know, that we're communicating with you, that you're communicating with your constituents, that the people are in the room, to make sure that we've got it right. And we've got, you know, the goals clearly outlined and articulated. So you mentioned the money part of it. So the purpose of including these other properties, remember, the goal here is to sell these properties and get money from developers to pay the city and do the goals that we've outlined here, right? Build inclusive communities, build diverse communities, encourage local businesses, et cetera. So by adding more properties, we are potentially adding more revenue to the city by selling more properties. As long as the developers meet these goals that we've outlined, and they can incorporate that in more properties, in theory, there's more money, you know, coming into the city. So that's the money part of it. And then in regard to selection, and again, our process, and I appreciate the comments, and maybe it wasn't as clear, but our process with regards to this selection. So we don't have any say in who's on that selection committee. That's ultimately made by management or by, you know, city commission or so on and so forth, right? So they will choose a selection committee, and generally it's made up of, again, of staff, of board members, potentially a commissioner. The selection committee, yes.
So I want to clarify something. That's not your fault. It's my fault. I think you misunderstood my question. The funding infrastructure analysis report is updating infrastructure requirements for Southwest 6th Street, the extension and updating buildings needs an assessment on page 7. That's what I was getting at.
Yes, you're right. That we don't have an answer for that. We're going to management and to commission and say, we need money for this. Where is it coming? You know, where is it coming? So we don't have an answer for that, but we're identifying that as a kind of a next step, because it needs to be done, and we need to figure out where the money's going to be coming from.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. And then, so with selection committee. So again, the selection committee is chosen by management, by staff, by commission. It's established. The committee will be established. Once the committee is established, we will come up with a evaluation matrix, you know, and we'll determine that, you know, qualifications, financial capability, et cetera. And so we just help facilitate that. So we're not in the role of making any selections. We will give you our advice. I mean, if you're on the selection committee, we will give you, here are the 5 that came in. Here's what we think. You could take that for what it's worth, but we give you expert opinion based on, again, our knowledge. If somebody comes in there and says, I'm going to build, you know, 1,000 hotel rooms, you know, we'd say it's a plan that's flawed and it's not, you know, not viable, and it doesn't fit with the goals. So we will give you our opinion. We will give you a strengths and weaknesses analysis. Somebody mentioned financial. Now, we will give you a lot of information so that you, as the selection committee, whoever that selection committee is, makes a decision. Yes.
And my last follow-up with you is, has anybody done an evaluation, you as Colliers and a real estate agent? There has been some environmental overlays and overlays that have been put on the eastern part of the city, and including this area, environmental overlays, many different types of overlays that may impact the developers may impact anybody buying these properties has, and Rory Casso used to be in this business. I don't know if he still does, but any type of mitigation when it comes to brownfields, any type of mitigation when it comes to flora and fauna that has been taken into effect when it comes to the redevelopment or the sale of these properties. If you could help me out with that.
Rory might have.
I'll add to that, Ken. I guess the reason we want the infrastructure analysis, reason we want the environmental studies updated so that we can provide potential buyers the most current, accurate information about the property. So they will have in their contract period, a period of due diligence that they can validate the information we provide. They can perform their own independent studies in order to contractually make a project work on the site. And then lastly, the third level of that is during the regulatory review process, once a successful bidder gets to that point, will be held to the standards that are in the Land Development Code, which certainly include environmental and other standards. So there's really a three-tiered process to here: us informing the buyer informing themselves, and then the regulatory body overseeing that activity.
We good?
All
right.
Thank you.
Seawright?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick comment. I actually had some comments with regards to the Rosa Parks transfer station. However, I heard Member Bush, and most of her questions were some of mine. I guess for me, I wouldn't be able to support. I know they said we're going to have an action item tonight, and I'm assuming that action item will be to approve the original properties along with the optional properties. And I wouldn't be able to support that motion if it was made like that, simply because I wouldn't be able to support the Rosa Parks transfer station being a part of the optional package. And the reason why I don't think I've gotten the questions that Member Bush asked were some of the questions I think I asked at the last meeting when it came up with regards to what would be the plan. Because, it's easy for us to vote on it now and say we're going to talk about it. But if we vote on this tonight with the Rosa Parks transfer station in, then we're basically giving the okay to sell that property. And I don't think I feel comfortable with that because I think it is a very important piece of property. I know as for my agency, a lot of our clients utilize the Rosa Parks transfer station, and without having a plan or knowing what would be the plan should you sell that piece of property off and they don't want it to be a transfer station anymore, what would be the alternative? So I just wanted to make that comment that I wouldn't be able to support a motion if a motion was made to include the Rosa Parks transfer station in the optional package. I would want to see it come out because I just think it's way more discussion that need to be held on that particular piece of property. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Member Dixon.
My question's about zoning and kind of picking up on Member Fox's question about building heights, and zoning is really the driver of that. I believe in your presentation you mentioned that these properties are U9, Central City, and Public Service. I'm not sure if you can speak to how each parcel is zoned, but I was particularly interested in the ones that are public service, assuming that a developer is going to want to have those rezoned to something else. So my question is then about what will that process look like? Will someone submit a proposal contingent on rezoning, or will the city do some rezoning in advance of the solicitation in order to, have the city be able to say what they want these things to be? And I'll tell you, for me, the property that I'm sensitive about, in addition to the Rosa Parks, but it's also the former RTS facility, being adjacent to Depot Park, and just kind of thinking about that as a what's the highest and best use for the public on that piece of property.
Ken, I can speak to zoning if you like. When looking at the property, everything north of 5th north of the Kelly Power Plant is downtown zoning, or excuse me, U9 zoning, U9, with the exception of the McCrory Gardens. McCrory Gardens remains public services, and it is going to be preserved as public services because that park is being preserved as a park with only enhancements being part of the redevelopment plan that was approved back in 2013. The parking lot that is east of the GRU admin building is downtown zoning. The Rosa Parks transfer station is downtown zoning. If I come over to where Catalyst building is, the Catalyst building and the properties surrounding Catalyst to the east, which would be along Depot and 7th, then that is U9 zoning, with the warehouse north of Catalyst being downtown zoning. And then if we drop below Depot Park, the GRU storage yard is public service. And if we drop below that to what is now the old RTS facility, that is public service. So if the RTS facility were included in the power district and it were redeveloped, more than likely that would be a potential rezoning. The properties surrounding the old RTS facility are either zoned I-1 or I-2, both being industrial zonings, other than the balance of Depot Park, which is public service. So the statement is correct that zoning and land use do have a great deal to say about governing density, intensity, and height. However, the goals and objectives and the redevelopment plan from 2013 do provide additional restrictions on height, building character, and those will become contingencies within a contract that might be had with a prospective buyer that would limit development density, intensity, and building height beyond that of zoning. So the zoning coupled with contingencies in the contract to be in conformance with the goals and objectives will ultimately be the guiding factor for characteristics of redevelopment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. First of all, I want to apologize for being here late to this evening. Second, I think to Member Dixon's comment, I think you could pursue it in either way that she described. I want to just call the board's attention to the fact that when the city did their redevelopment associated with the Catalyst building, we did some associated rezoning of that property, just the footprint around the building, et cetera, to get to that issue. And I think it would also address Dr. Bush's comment about how do you maybe control for a little larger area around McCrory Garden, probably with an application of, or retention of what the zoning is currently. So, thank you.
I don't see any more comments here. I know we have people from the public that want to speak. We've been at this for a while now, and just ask you not to repeat. I'd like to give you a chance to talk because you've been here and been patient and listening. Just try not to repeat things. I think we've done a good job getting notes. I know staff have been busy taking notes. I've taken, other members have. But I do want to hear what you've had to say. We have another item. I'm getting a text from staff saying that we have an 8 o'clock where we have to hit one of these items, or they won't be able to last. So we'll let this go till 7:30. That's 20 minutes. If everybody can be judicious with their time and give us what they have to say, that would help, and then that would give us a chance to get that next item. I don't know what the pleasure of the board is tonight, whether or not you're going to want to pass a resolution or not. I doubt very seriously you're going to get a full recommendation. I think you've gotten a lot of comments to take
Mr.
back.
Chair?
Yes.
after citizen comment, I have a motion I'd like to move.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
Well, if the board wishes to move forward with citizen comment, I have the names of those that have asked to address.
Okay. Is that, I think everybody here is, they've been waiting patiently. I don't see anybody saying no, so you want to call them up? Are you signed up?
I got it. No,
It works.
Ms. Blanche Stokely.
Basically, I am a resident in the Southeast Historic District, which abuts the Power District, and the notion, what concerns me is the zoning, and that core offering could go as high as 8 stories. And that is kind of really concerning to myself and the other residents. And I also agree that not only the historic district, but the Sugar Hill and the Spring Hill resident groups should also be included in this planning. Everybody needs to have a voice, and some of this stuff feels like it just comes out of nowhere and bam, it's going to get done without us having any say. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Basilia Chapman.
Thank you. I too live in the bed and breakfast district, and I love living there. And thank you for your dedication to this process. And my question is, what will your legacy be? And I saw some plans that I have not seen anywhere here tonight with some 6 and 8 story buildings on it, and hopefully that plan has gone away, because what we want is, in the original plans back in 2017, they had a maximum of 3 stories, which makes a lot more sense. So do we want cement and high-rise buildings, or do we want green spaces and affordable housing for families? And we want the area to reflect the historic district. We have a real jewel here in Gainesville, and that's what I hope will continue to attract people to Gainesville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie Davis.
We still have to take care of our citizens. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Board. I live across the street from McCory Gardens, and I've lived there since the 91. Member Blount mentioned sunlighting the creek, and what I think would be wonderful is if west of the creek, there are already apartments there, put the apartments there. East of the creek, you put historically, I forget the right word, houses that look like the houses that are already there, similar to what it was done at Pleasant Street versus what was done at Fifth Avenue. That's one comment. And then there's been a lot of talk about the need for mixed income or low income housing. That's something Ms. Fox brought up and one other of you. And I have my doubts that a conventional development corporation can do that, because their goal is to make money for their shareholders. And I would like to suggest that we look at nonprofit developers, such as in Durham, North Carolina, they They developed a downtown area there with mixed income using a group called DHIC in partnership with self-help venture funding. So they were able to build housing, 75%, it's called Willard Street, and I have an article about it, I have the number here. 75% of the houses were for incomes that were less than 60% of the average mean income. 25% were for income less than 30%. So it's a very desirable place to live. And I don't think if we have a conventional developer, we're going to end up with what we have already over on Fifth Avenue and downtown on Second Avenue, where there are these big boxes that only students from South Florida can afford, not people that have lived here all their lives. The other thing, you talk a lot about mixed use, and if it's I'm into mixed use. I'd love to be able to walk to a coffee shop or a bookstore. Wouldn't that be nice? But when you look at the mixed use that they've already been doing over on Second Avenue, it's these great big box apartments. The bottom floor is empty. Commercial space that nobody wants because there's nowhere to park, you know, and it's like, you know, that doesn't work. Whatever that we've been doing isn't working. Another point I'd like to make is with increased density, there will be an increased need for the community garden for people. So as Member Bush mentioned, I like the idea, and we support the idea of expanding the garden to include the green space to the west of it, which they're talking about creating a road, and the road would just kill the garden, and also the green space behind it. So we would really like that to be part of your plan, is to expand it, keeping in mind that as there's increased density, there will be increased need. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, the character of this area. It's right across from Depot Park. So it makes sense to expand what we have at Depot Park that everyone in town loves. This is ours, you know, this is not the commissioner's land. This is our land. We're the city. And what we love about Depot Park is that it's so accessible to everyone and we're all using it. Well, how about some racquetball courts, some basketball courts, a baseball diamond, and how about that warehouse being turned into a place for like a 7-day-a-week farmers market like they have in places like Portland and Santa Fe, New Mexico, and destination cities. So that's the kind of thing we, as the neighbors, would like to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Perry Fukuyama?
I do want to recognize that Ms. Danielle Malden is getting up and getting a lot of exercise tonight cleaning this. So thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for all your work in this very ambitious project. And it's gone on for many years, and I understand the frustration of wanting it to come to fruition. A couple of things were brought up today that were surprises for me. One is the optional properties. What happens if you have a bidder but does not want the optional properties? Then what happens to the optional properties? How are these consistently developed or not together? The fact that I think I understand where the parking lot is. It's now an overflow parking for Depot Park. Now that's become an optional property, if I understand you correctly. Already parking is difficult at Depot Park. It's such a popular destination. So I'm concerned about those levels. The bringing up Spring Hill and Sugar Hill neighborhoods in 2013, I'm not sure that they were as involved as they might want to be today. So I think there's still need for more engagement. The final thing I wanted to comment on was this question of building vertically over Rosa Parks. And I'm thinking, who would want to be above a bus station where there are buses running constantly? What kind of facility is that makes sense for that? So there's nothing about that proposal really that makes sense to me, but many times things don't make sense. This is super, I can't quite grasp a buyer. I don't know who would develop this, given all the things that you are requesting. But if they come forward, more power to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and all the effort you put into this project. I live in the Southeast Historic District, and actually very close to the land we're talking about. My concerns from the plans that I've seen is that this is a real estate deal and a development, and not necessarily a public project for the people. I know it's been bounced around a lot, and I imagine that's because of the environmental issues with that property that we haven't discussed. Certain members have brought that up, and I think that we sort of have the cart before the horse, because how can you sell something if you don't? We're going to get an evaluation of what it's worth, but we don't really know the extent, and now that these new pieces of land have been added, of the environmental issues over there. The contracting, I don't want to get ahead of us, but contracting is a very difficult thing to do when all the bidders are bidding on something different. It's never a good thing to do. You can't win at that type of contracting. If the city came up with the plan and the city accommodated what people want, it would be a simple contract. We'd know what everyone was bidding on, and we would know how to share the expenses of all those utilities, road work, and environmental cleanup, which is going to be significant. I think Depot Park showed how long a project can take. The neighbors that live around this area would have to endure that. If you want to clean that entire site and build on it, they would have to endure the construction traffic, the noise, the dirt, the dust, and the utility outages, not to mention what the city might be involved in paying. Again, the contract has to be written, and we're talking, this project's been, the plan's been there for 9 years. We're talking about trying to negotiate with somebody in 6 months after approval of the plan. Those people have 6 months into it maybe. The city has 9, 10 years into it. We will be pressured in a negotiation type of contract to go with a winner, whether it's really the winner or not, because we put 10 years into it and they put maybe 6 months thinking about it. And most likely, if they don't, we don't pay them to bid on it, they're going to use something they built somewhere else. Because people, I've been in this process before, and when you ask for requests for proposals, people don't come up with a brand new plan for you. It's very expensive to do design. They take what they've done before, they piece it together on a sheet of paper, they send it in, and that's what you get. And so I just ask that you please consider those issues in this process, because down the road, we all could be losers, and there could be one person walking away as a winner in this race. So thank you.
Thank you. Four more? No. Okay. No. You're fine. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for watching the time.
Thank you so much for your effort to take care of Gainesville. I just can't even begin to extend my appreciation. I mean, I'm just here. I'm new to the party. You've been putting in so much time and effort, and that there's no way to appreciate it enough with a few words. But I would like to say that Depot Park, South Main, Cade Museum are destinations for people. They're all done within the scope of what we love about Gainesville. People come to those places. Well, I live in Southeast District. It's a destination place. I walk every day. I'm out on my bike. I see everyone. And I stop people on the street and, oh, I'm from Hale. Oh, I'm from Okemik. Oh, I'm from the Village. Oh, I'm from Jacksonville. I came here to walk. The Southeast Historic District is a destination, as well as Depot Park. And anything we can do to keep that flavor, and as soon as you develop it, it's lost, or could be lost. You can't ever recreate it. You can't pull back to what we overdo. Verticality in buildings, loss of green space, we can't grab that back. So be careful, be cautious, take your time. And I agree with everything that everybody said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, members. Nathan Scott. It's refreshing to be at a meeting and be vaccinated and not have to wear a mask. Appreciate the member of the chair and the discretion. So with respect to the item that's before the consideration for the GCRA, I would echo the comments of my neighbors. I think that this process, as you've heard, has been ongoing for almost a decade. No progress is made, and it's been like Lot 10, the Power District, and you know, go all the way back to the failed promises of Plan East Gainesville. Nothing really gets done because there's no vision, and it just is what it is. I'm deeply concerned by some of the proposed development plans. We have a new city manager. He's brought in consultants, Colliers, and others, and they have led the charge of trying to tell us what's right for Gainesville. But they have commercial interests in mind, not the best interests of the citizens and what we want in terms of green space, mixed use, and affordable housing. I'm also very concerned, as my other neighbors are, about gentrification. You have these out-of-town developers come in, and you see what's happened with the Porters community. So again, development that's sustainable and in the public interest is not necessarily a bad thing, but I would encourage this panel to proceed with caution. I've heard there may be a motion, but there's really no need to move with haste on this. I know that it's a big decision to sell off GRU's administration building. I mean, obviously that's highly developable property. But you know, that's a one-time infusion to the city coffers, and they spend money. That money will be spent before the building sales even closed. But the Rosa Parks transit station next to that, I've heard some other comments from my neighbors that they and from the panel that they can't support selling that off too. So if the city's having a fire sale to support its spending addiction with taxpayer money, then so be it. But I would urge you to approach this deliberately, listen to public feedback, and try and have a nice solution that is livable and invites people. You know, there's a couple municipalities that have done that with success and makes it a nice open space and that's lives in harmony with development, not just these high-rise story apartment complexes for students that are displacing our native Gainesville citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. That was last.
Mr. Chair, I'm told that there are a couple of other folks online that do not have access to my station.
I can't tell either. Can Trish see them?
Yep. Yes, there are 3 online.
All right.
For
Again,
comment.
those that are online, ask you to be brief if you can and don't repeat. We are trying to get closure to this so we can hit another item before 8 o'clock. Who am I supposed to be looking at? The only hand I see up is member Granny Gomez, and he wants to speak after everybody else.
Our first commenter is Melissa Montilla.
Okay.
Melissa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi. Well, thank you all for reading my email and for most of you getting my last name right. That's unusual. I just really have a few questions for you, and you don't have to answer them right now, but I would very much like for to get these answers eventually and for you to be thinking about them. What started all of this for me is that the parcel map that has been in the newspaper and all over social media does not include public-owned green space. So how it's looking, and I don't know if that's a communication error or what, it doesn't match. And so that concerns me and makes it hard for me to have faith in the process. How do you plan to ensure that the goals will be met once sold? Ken was talking about how their plans, mostly match up with what we would like to see, and we would like that to be certain that that happens, not that developers can sit on it for a few years until, I don't know, commissions change and boards change. Why are we selling this land now, right? That question was already brought up. I would like to reiterate that. How are you going to make it affordable for small businesses and for families to live and work there? The reason why those other buildings are empty on the bottom over by Porter's is because they're asking $25 a square foot, which is a very hard thing to do if you're just a regular small business and you're not selling liquor. I speak from experience with that. And then the last thing I would like to say is parking and traffic are not small details. They are a big deal and have a tremendous impact on the quality of life of everybody involved. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Got another one, Trish?
We do. Next we have Vasiliki Betty Smokovitis. I apologize for that.
That's okay. I'm not a disease. It's Vetus, but that's okay. Long.
Vetus, okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much to everyone here who has spoken ahead of me. The first thing I would like to suggest to Colliers in their presentation is that they correct the slide that says neighborhood, because it isn't just one neighborhood. I'm here to represent Kirkwood, which is to the south. And someone asked for opinions from people who are in the southern end of the development. And that's what I'm here to do. I have the second house in from South Main. I too am surprised to see the RTS site, which is quite extensive, now included in the optional plan. My neighborhood has not been informed of this. That is about half a mile away from my house. I'm on Southwest 21st Avenue. I'm also surprised that no one has brought up the fact that Gray Bars, owned by Stringfellow and now being represented by David Coffey, the attorney, is also up for sale. And the city plan board actually approved a zoning and land use change enabling something like up to 13 stories. So it's kind of naive to think that this part around Depot is not going to be similarly rezoned, at least by the plan board. It does have to go up to the city commission, so it's not yet a done deal. But we in Kirkwood have been watching this at uncomfortably close range with our friends in Porter's. In fact, that's how I knew that this was going to happen. No one informed me. It was my friends at Porter's who said, please come to this meeting. And our concern is that there will be a domino effect so that you have that entire area being rezoned with, buildings that are going to look very much like the standard. It does not have to be 13 stories to be causing incredible hardship for those of us who live in that area. It can just be 8 stories. And what we would rather see is something that is mixed use, mixed income, what people have been saying, athletic facilities, more cultural amenities, something that will bring people to this area and celebrate the natural beauty. And that can be urban. Yes, it can have an urban feel, but not something where you've got multiple versions of the standard all around there. And then finally, having lived in Kirkwood for 21 years, I've been dragged into all kinds of negotiations with developers for the Retreat, for Live for Comfort Inn, for the Rise. All of them are around 13th Street. And to my absolute despair, I have learned that they just are not honest about their intentions. They show you a plan. If they invite you to a meeting, they will show you a plan and you go, that's not so bad. Could we change this? Oh, yes, of course. But what actually goes up there is not what you think is going to go up there. So I would ask those of you who are, really examining this and scrutinizing it to exert even more care. You can see what's happening all over the city. I mean, I agree with, the speaker ahead of me who said it's us, it's the whole city. That park belongs to us. It's a celebration of Gainesville. Please don't let it get wrecked by overdevelopment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tricia?
Our final person is Tana Silva.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I agree with everything that the board members have said, a lot of the other speakers have said, and I want to say that this plan has come a long way since April 7th when Colliers presented the previous 4-page PowerPoint that had very little mention at all of the 2013 plan. So I'm glad to see the 2013 plan is a key part of this. I too am shocked by the RTS property being thrown into this. And for a year and a half, some of us have been asking for that whole area to be carefully planned. The assumption that I'm hearing is that this is all going to go to one big developer, and that's very concerning. I would like to point out that in the 2013 plan on page 7, plan incrementally and build slowly. Community development is a process that can produce rich results when it unfolds slowly over time. The power district must be planned for implementation in one or in many phases and over the coming years. The advantage of this approach is that it will build redevelopment momentum for the district with many successive small projects and create an organic character that is in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood. Rather than putting forward a single complete vision, the Power District Redevelopment Plan proposes a strategy that can yield many different futures within a common framework of public spaces which support the community's vision. So please, before doing anything, go back to that and make that a key part of the redevelopment of that area. That area, the downtown, the Power District, and South Main will make or break the future of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish?
We have no more comments online.
Okay, thank you. The consultant that is on our second item, infill housing community engagement, has to leave at 8 o'clock. Member Grundy Gomez has his hand up, so I'm going to go back to him and ask him if his comments, we can keep it short. If we have a pleasure of this board, I'd like to try and move them along quickly, or we're going to miss that item.
Can you hear, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to keep it very short. I move to table this discussion regarding this project, and I think we need to go back to the drawing board, have some more introspection, more community engagement at this time. Based on what I'm hearing from our friends, neighbors, some members of the board, there's still too many questions that need to be answered. So I move that we table this discussion and this project at this time.
Okay. Person raise their hand that had the second? Okay. We have a motion and a second to table the item. Do we have any discussion? Briefly? Yeah.
What do we mean when we're tabling? Are we going to pick this back up? I'd rather have some something concrete for if we're moving this. Are we going to talk about it next meeting, allocate an hour to it, something like that? Because I think my concern is the more we just keep kicking it down, we're just going to keep kicking things down, and no one's ever going to come to a decision with this. It's kind of what I'm concerned with about most of our projects is we just want to keep tabling it, sending it out for more community involvement, because I mean, in 2013, almost everybody who was here for the 2013 community engagement stuff, as far as I understand, and we've heard a lot of their opinions, and I think a lot of their opinions have been reflected in the plan. So,
fair, Mr. Chair, fair enough. I'll add a time frame in there, Mr. Chair. If the seconder will agree, they can bring it back in a month for next month's discussion.
Okay. Is there more discussion?
Is that enough time for staff to reevaluate this and?
This isn't even our project. really.
Oh, okay.
You know, this was a presentation to us. They were asking us to.
Support it.
It's going to, in front of the city commission about the property. And so this was a presentation for us to hear and for the public to hear as well. We could table it and talk about it again. We've discussed it for over 2 hours tonight. And so it's up to this committee. Did you have a discussion item?
Just a question, if it's scheduled to go to the city commission in June, are they gonna make a decision before we?
I think they said it was going to July.
Point of information?
Hold on just a second. It does, but I think in the presentation he said July, right?
Yeah, I mean.
Point of information, Mr. Chair?
I was gonna let Mr. Breckfield speak, and then I'm gonna come back to you.
We were actually shooting for, trying to get it back to the commission in a timely manner, but that doesn't say that it has to go in June or July.
Okay.
Number one, and then number two is, we made a commitment to this board at our last meeting that for the larger projects, you all wanted to hear an update. So that's why we're here. We're here with 2 other items. And so we're gonna come back with periodic updates. And if we're not ready, then just give, a month is fine. Probably, if you want us to actually do some of the engagement that we've heard about today, that probably might take a little bit longer. If you want us to come back and say, here's how we react to what we heard, here's what we heard, and here's how we're gonna timeline out action on what we heard, we could do that as well.
Okay, thank you. I think you've heard a lot of recommendations this evening. Mr. Grenda Gomez?
Well, I just wanted to clarify for the record that this project does need a recommendation from the GCRA. So we do need to take action. That's why I'm saying, Member Palmer's comments were somewhat ambiguous. I thought I was understanding him to say that he needed a time frame, but I'm happy to hear from other members of the board so that we can move along based on, they are bringing us back a project, but it still seems like there needs a little bit of tweaking. So I'm trying to put a definitive time frame. So I want to hear the pleasure of my colleagues on what we should do. So if anybody could provide that, I'm amenable to your thoughts here.
So I'm looking at number 2 and number 7. That would be Mr. Blount.
Yeah. I am happy to think this can get enough time to engage Member Fox's suggestion that we need a re-energized neighborhood engagement process so that this reflects what people who've invested their lives in their neighborhood for decades want to see. I have heard some mention of, in this presentation and past ones, of GRU as a stakeholder. And I'm constantly surprised at the autonomy that is granted to GRU as if they are not a subunit of the city and property of us, the citizens. So I don't think that GRU should be there saying, we demand this amount of money for the property. And we sometimes see this orientation for local government that is supposed to run like a business. And that's not true. Government is not obliged to make the most money they can wherever they can. Government is likely to go in the hole providing services for citizens sometimes, and that's all right. That's why government is not business. So I would like to see an engagement process brought back and or even started, and think about the citizens as the highest value this city has to consider.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table any recommendation until our next meeting. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to ask for some clarity. Is Member Blount, I'm confused. I didn't know if he was wanting to add to the motion. Was he speaking to the motion on the floor? I'm confused. I didn't understand that.
I agree that, Mr. Chair, I agree that we need to have the staff present us a better plan. I'm just suggesting an element of that should include the discussion we've had at the dais already about neighborhood engagement.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like to amend my motion, please.
Okay.
I would like to come back in, instead of June, come back in July, give it 2 months, so that gives time for community engagement, to have plausible, real, live community engagement, and then come back in the July's meeting with an update. That's my amendment to my motion, if the seconder agrees.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Do the seconder agree or no? Or? All right, discussion.
Okay, I wanted to ask Eric from staff, do you think 2 months is long enough for us to do everything that needs to be done with the community engagement and staff? I know you're working on other projects. We just want to make sure it doesn't go before the commission.
Yeah, I hear you.
Before it's brought back to us.
Mr. Chair, if it's the commission's desire that we try to do the best job we can with citizen engagement in 2 months, then that's what we're going to do.
Thank you. So you would set it up in the community and visiting like we did the other community?
I don't know if that's his charge at this point.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll find out from Sigmund notes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the community engagement, whether we should, I mean, if we are saying, it sounds like to me everybody wants to hear a little bit more community engagement. I think I would rather see something a little bit more specific with that. So, I mean, I don't know if we need to allocate funds for that, or whether that's just within the purview of CAPER to be able to just kind of take on and go forward. But if there's something a little bit more specific as far as saying, we're going to take this, we're going to table the conversation, we're going to do 2 months of community engagement and then come back, I think that's a motion that, and we need to allocate X number of dollars to make this happen. That's a motion that I would feel very good about.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
That's not something that we are paying for. That's something that's already paid for by a developer by right, and somebody that wouldn't necessarily be something that we pay for. So if they're having the community engagement and the developer or staff, that was something that we already present, not necessarily, if it's not something that was initially coming to us anyway, and it's just a presentation, why are we paying for something that's coming from somewhere else?
There's no developer.
Well, not the developer, but why would we be paying something to GCRA when we're just having a presentation? So I'm not
Because you're initiating
understanding
a
Mr.
plan.
Palmer's point.
You're rejecting the 2013 plan and the 2016 or 17 additions to the plan, and you're saying you want to re-engage in a plan. I think that means you have to pay for it. Just staff's gonna have to tell me. We've got, is this Mr. Nilsson? Would you go ahead?
Well, Mr. Chair, I have a point of process and reality. The way I read this, the City Commission is not standing by waiting for our recommendation on anything. This is just a point, this whole item is a point of information. Now, we can choose to do what we want, but as far as I can tell, the City Commission has their own timeline and their own agenda, and they're going to do that. So if we want to delay something to July or whatever, I don't think that's going to make any difference to the City Commission's schedule. And I would further add that I heard a lot of input tonight. We are an advisory committee, and we're not specifically charged with making giving advice to the commission on this item. This is more or less background for us in context of our overall issues with respect to the larger CRA district. I would suggest that what the citizens and others would be interested in is directly involving the commission itself. We can provide you with a platform, but I'm not sure how far that platform impact goes beyond this room. Having served on the commission, I kind of have a sense of what we're talking about here. So I would definitely, if you're interested in, find out when this is going to be on the City Commission agenda, perhaps contact individual commissioners and organize your presentations, pro or con, to whatever parts of the issue. And I think that's where you're going to get some effective results. Okay? That's just my opinion.
Thank you. I concur. I think the recommendations that we gave tonight were loud and clear. I think people understood them. I think we heard recommendations from the public as well. Do you have another statement, Mr. Palmer? No. Okay. Any more lights?
I do.
Okay.
I guess for me is, I would typically, the former city commissioner's point of things, you know, the public coming to the city commission, but sometimes we've seen process where things are put on consent agenda and kept from the public. So I think that it deserves a recommendation. So I'm gonna stand by the motion on the floor that I stand by our friends and neighbors that we need to hear more. So whatever y'all vote, but that's where I stand on. Thanks.
So the motion and the second is that this committee will table discussion for 2 months and bring the item back up. It may already be a solved issue at that point. Any further discussion?
Is this something that would naturally come back up? I mean, I guess I'm still confused on what the difference of tabling it now versus our regular expected updates.
We asked them to come back for updates. This was an update.
Right.
Okay, it wasn't here really as an action item for us, but they did ask for a recommendation.
Well,
So
I mean,
we're not giving them the recommendation.
Do we? Oh.
Right, we're gonna table it for 2 months. So they're not getting a recommendation.
Okay. I guess I'm confused on what the plan is, but so that's me just.
The motion was to table for 2 months, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm confused on what that accomplishes, because aren't they gonna, we're tabling our recommendation for something? This is just, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be too difficult on it. I don't understand what we're tabling, because aren't we gonna have Caper come back and update us on where we are on this project consistently?
Well,
and have conversations on this, or?
We're tabling because we have the public that is saying that they need more engagement. We have a recommendation. So for there to be proper time, I'm not sure how there's logically, if people don't need time to have engagement, Caper or whoever staff would need to have engagement, they need to hear a community engagement plan from either be it Colliers, be it whomever it is. Clearly, you have several neighborhoods, Kirkwood, Sugar Hill, Porters, and many, many others, Mr. Palmer, who have not heard effectively in meaningful discussion from staff that they need to. So tabling would be appropriate so we could bring that back. I'm not sure why we're getting so lost in confusion. I don't understand that.
The reason to me is I guess I'm wondering if rather than tabling a discussion, we should be making a recommendation. We should be making a recommendation that the city commission, you know, the best thing we can do is recommend that the city commission goes forward with some sort of better community engagement. Then we actually have some sort of resolution for this, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to kick it down 2 months and hopefully community engagement happens. Because as far as correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand the process, anything that we do here is going to go to the commission. We may end up in a situation where the commission has already kind of decided, because we held off on making some sort of a recommendation. The committee can, or the commission can make a decision without us, and then 2 months down the road when we pick this conversation up, it may have already passed our opportunity to make real suggestions on community engagement.
Because what will end up happening is, right now, if we send that forward to the city commission, it's as though saying we are accepting of everything presented, when the fact of the matter is that we clearly know that several members, you heard and I heard in the chamber, whether that be Member Fox and others, had some questions regarding the engagement. So if we send this forward to the commission, it's as though we are accepting of what we heard tonight, when clearly that is not the case. That's not clearly what's been articulated to me. Maybe you heard something different. I've heard Member Blount hear something different. Member Bush had some. Member Dixon had some concerns. So I think there's a lot of questions, whether it be the the height of buildings, the community engagement. There's a lot of moving parts here. So I think tabling is appropriate. If you have a better recommendation, Member Palmer, again, I'm open to it, but I haven't heard that from you.
Well, I've got other lights, people want to talk in discussion. I'm gonna start down this side this time.
I was actually going to offer a substitute motion. And I'm trying to capture the comments that were made in the proceedings. So I would recommend that we support the Power District redevelopment process, and with the reconsidering inclusion of the Rosa Parks and the former RTS public service properties, we consider extending, or I guess we're actually asking the City Commission to consider extending protections around the community garden. Third bullet, to emphasize smaller scale buildings with opportunities to access recreation, and recommending that staff engage the neighborhoods prior to returning to the City Commission.
Second.
Second.
Oh, we already have a motion on the table before that.
She's offering a
So
substitute.
If you declare one of these, pardon? Hold on just a second. Let's go ahead and call the question on the first motion.
Question, I call a question.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. We have a second. It's to table. All in favor?
Sorry, just for clarification, do we consider the substitute motion?
I don't know the answer to that. The first motion
We're
is
only
declared, I
saying-
think.
Point of information, Mr. Chair. It is allowable for Member Dixon to make a substitute motion. That is in line, and we have to make a motion and ruling on the substitute motion before we proceed. She's offering a substitute motion, and it was properly
You want
seconded.
to do that?
Let's vote it up and down the first motion and then move from there.
We're gonna vote on the first motion, up or down. We do have a substitute motion, and the first motion can always come back again if that's what needs to happen.
Can I clarify what, if voting down, or like what? Yeah, I don't understand how the substitute motion plays into that.
I don't
And what-
either, so we're gonna deal with the first one.
Okay.
And then we'll have a chance to talk about the second one.
Okay.
And we can revisit the first one if we want to.
Okay.
Depending on what you decide. So the motion is to table until July. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Do we, how many, let's better do hands so we can count. So that is one. Okay, staff get that? All opposed? Motion fails.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, we have a substitute motion.
And what is that? I didn't quite understand it.
I'll repeat it. It has 4 parts. So the first is to support the Power District redevelopment strategy with the following recommendations for the City Commission. That they reconsider inclusion of the Rosa Parks and former RTS properties that are in public service. That they consider extending protections around the community garden. That they emphasize smaller scale buildings with opportunities to access recreation. And that staff engage neighborhoods prior to returning to the City Commission.
And I second.
Okay, Ms. Seawright seconds.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Sorry.
discussion.
I just want to get this in as a friendly addition. Could we include in that to engage a citizens, there's a citizens group looking to extend Sweetwater Branch Creek down to Depot and extend the park east of the creek. I think we heard a lot of people interested in developing that area east of the creek as a park. And it would be very helpful if we did that, because these people are working really hard. I know about that. They're
Yes.
Madison, anyway.
Yes, that's a good one. I missed that one.
You would include that in your motion?
Thank you.
Member Seawright?
That's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
We'll have discussion. Member Grundy Gomez?
I wanted to ask, well, we're offering friendly amendments. I wanted to ask if we could have a friendly amendment as well for including, to more narrowly define what neighbors, because I'm not hearing from Ms. Dixon, it's kind of ambiguous about the neighbors of who we are. We have a lot of neighborhoods that are not included, so not just McCrory Gardens or the Power District, but Sugar Hill Porters as well as Kirkwood. So we narrowly define what that is. If she's open at, because I don't want to leave any ambiguity on the table, so that people are included as well.
Thank you.
I guess I'm just a little hesitant to name neighborhoods because we might even leave
Might
one
miss
out. But I said neighborhoods plural, and the intention is that the city would reach out to everyone who's, you know, in this vicinity, even to Kirkwood.
Other discussion? Don't see any other hands up. All right. We have the motion on the table and been seconded. Does everybody understand it, the scope of it? All right.
Not really.
Would you like to repeat the motion?
Well, I understood what she said, Mr. Chair, but I'm thinking we need to invite the commissioners to come out to the neighborhood and just do a meeting. They've done it before, all the commissioners, and hear from the people from all of those neighborhoods. And I'm sure we could pull them all together from all the neighborhoods involved. Because they're not going to have a clear picture of what we want by saying we support the Power District and whatever. I think we need to have that engagement. I really think we need to have it before we move forward. That's just my opinion.
Okay. I think you would probably ought to call commissioners and invite them there. I'm not sure that's something that we're not hosting a meeting. We won't be inviting them to that.
I'm hoping staff would do that.
I'm sure.
Can staff do that? They did it when we did Duval in the other neighborhoods. Didn't you all set up the community engagement?
Mr. Chair, we've heard what the concern of the board is, and we'll act accordingly.
Okay.
Okay. You will act upon it? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we need more clarity on the motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You want to read it again, Ms. Dixon?
I guess.
Do you want to hear what the motion is?
No, I needed some clarity. I didn't understand anything really any different than what Member Fox was just asking about for clarity on community engagement than what I was asking. I don't know. It's just confusing. Yes, can you please restate it? Because it's confusing now, really confusing now.
Restate the whole motion or the part about neighborhood engagement?
Neighborhood engagement, really just restate the motion. That'd be great.
Restate the motion.
Okay. Move to state that we support the Power District redevelopment strategy with 5 recommendations for the City Commission. 1 was to reconsider inclusion of Rosa Parks in the former RTS properties that are in public service. 2, consider extending the protections around the community garden. 3, emphasize smaller scale buildings with opportunities to access recreation. 4, have city staff engage neighborhoods prior to returning to the City Commission. And 5, to include extension of the Sweetwater Park. Sweetwater Creek.
Sunshine and also
the daylighting,
the park to be built and extended down to Depot Park.
Okay, include.
East of the creek.
Okay, include daylighting of Sweetwater Creek and extending the park.
To Depot.
Okay.
Okay, that makes
All
sense.
right.
Thank you.
Got it. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Dixon. All right. We still have a long agenda. Does somebody need a bio break?
I do.
All right, we're going to go back to the front. The GCRA budget follow-up. Yes.
Mr. Chair, while everybody's moving around here, perhaps we could do some agenda management as to priorities, because it is 8:05, and I'm not sure we're going to get the whole agenda in. So let's, what do we got to do, and what can we hold off?
Staff, are there any things we have to do tonight? Trish?
Chair.
Sarah?
Thank you.
That's not
We do have two groups that are here tonight. One is our consultant GAI regarding the Porters and Pleasant Street properties and community engagement. And then we also have Jerry Diedenbach, who's representing the Seminary Lane developers as well on the agenda. And I think they're there in the chambers with you.
That's the Trammell Web?
Correct. And the budget update was just to answer some of your previous questions from last month. So if you wanted to push that, we're coming back anyway in next month to go over that in greater detail. So.
And I have one, we need to select a member for the downtown strategic plan.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3 we have to do. Do folks want to drop the rest of them? And punt to the next meeting?
Cover those 3.
No, so we have to do infill housing, we have to do the Trammell Web, and we have to at least appoint a member to the downtown strategic plan. Everything else we can push to the next month.
Infill housing, that was the one that we missed at 8 o'clock?
Apparently one of the consultants decided that he would cancel another meeting to stay here.
Oh, wow.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Thank his children.
I don't.
Get some clarity.
Yes.
So you're pushing what? I'm sorry, I'm lost.
So we're suggesting that the agenda, because it's 8 o'clock and past some of our bedtimes, will now include infill housing community engagement plan 201162. It will also include Trammell Web development agreement request for Fifth Avenue 201232. And it will include at least appointment of a member to sit on the downtown strategic plan update 201192. And the rest of the agenda will go to next month. So
Is it possible that if staff recommend we have a special meeting if there's any items of urgency?
I don't think there's any of these that are emergency. So I guess from an agenda point of view, I'd take a motion from somebody if they wanted to do that.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right, do I have a second? I've got a second. Is there some discussion? The motion is to modify our agenda to include infill housing 201162, to include Trammell Web development 201232, and to include downtown strategic plan project update shortened to be a member, for this group to nominate a member, 201192. Everything else on the agenda will be moved to next month.
Who made the motion?
That was member Grundy Gomez made the motion and member Dixon seconded.
I call a question, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. We now have a shortened agenda. If you were moved to next month and you were here, I apologize. We had a lot of important business and opinions. We'll see you next month. So let's go back to where we were, infill housing. We're ready to go.
All right, good evening, GCRA Advisory Board members. I'll let GAI get the presentation up to share on the screen. All right, just for the record, my name is Chelsea Bakaitis, and I am the project manager with the GCRA, and I'm managing the two Porters and Pleasant Street infill lot housing initiative that we are going to discuss. If you remember, I first brought this discussion to you, this board, about a year ago in July and August. And we got some of your input on just the initial idea of doing a housing program project on these two lots. So we had left the conversation off in order to begin the creation of a community engagement plan for the project neighborhoods. This evening, I am pleased to introduce Wes Schaefer from GAI Consultants. Mr. Schaefer and his team have worked hard to present to you their proposed community engagement plan for feedback from you, our advisory board members. I will now give the time over to Mr. Schaefer. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chuck. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for allowing us to continue this evening. It's honestly an honor to present to you tonight. I appreciate your time and commitment to this issue. So what I'll be talking about is our community engagement plan for infill development at two sites that we'll talk about, one in Porters, one in Pleasant Street. And I think it is appropriate to maybe just orient this conversation around some of what we have been talking about this evening, and understanding that, over many years, perhaps even over a century, there have been many policies and practices that have maintained or created racialized patterns of disinvestment in cities across the US, Gainesville included. And this has left a lot of low-income communities of color particularly susceptible to gentrification and displacement. And I think as we face, this what I would call a housing affordability crisis, I think crisis is appropriate. We might be seeing some patterns that are sort of history in repeating. And I don't think what you're going to see today in terms of this community engagement plan is necessarily a silver bullet or something that will really solve these complex and persistent issues. But I hope you will see that we are taking a very intentional approach. We want to hear from the people who will be impacted from development happening as capital and investment continues to flow in Gainesville. How might we actually ensure everyone can grow alongside the growth of Gainesville? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I have my little notepad, so if you do have questions, I will certainly be cataloging all the questions you have. I think it's very important. The questions you have will likely signal questions that the community might have, and we want to anticipate what the community's asking and thinking. My name is Wes Schaefer. I'm an urban planner, and I work with GAI Consultants, the Community Solutions Group. We're a service group of GAI, and we're located in Orlando, Florida. I'm also joined on the call by Donald Wishart, who is a landscape architect with the Community Solutions Group, and Natalie, who I think had to leave. She's actually a student at UF and is participating in the Master's in Business, and so she had a class this evening. But Natalie's an economist with GAI Community Solutions, and the three of us are essentially presenting this to you tonight. Without further ado, let's jump in. So you likely are familiar with the two sites in question. I won't spend too much time on this, but they're both somewhat small. We're not quite power district size, but a little bit closer to home. They're both owned by the city of Gainesville. One of them is along Pleasant Street or Northwest 5th Avenue, and is part of, well, in both cases, these are part of historically African-American communities, and really the earliest of settlements post-Civil War of freedmen and women. And in a lot of ways, that legacy persists today. So one of the sites is Pleasant Street in the northwest quarter, I suppose you could say. The other is Porters, the Porters site in the southwest quarter. And like I said, they're both owned by City of Gainesville. One is Pleasant Street is zoned U6 or Urban 6, and the Porters is zoned Public Service and Operations. And I've put on this slide just to show you what the walk scores are for these. Real estate agents and developers actually do pay attention to things like the walk score. And you can see from these very high scores that, of course, these sites are located in very walkable, very bikeable areas, which is a signal of their desirability in a sense. It might be a proxy of that. And so we should expect that as investment and capital flows back into Gainesville, that there are pressures placed on low and moderate income communities of color who we would hope would not be displaced by this capital flow or reemergence of investment. And so really I guess you could say the design challenge of this community engagement project, and we would be open to your interpretation and reinterpretation of this, but to start, we're basically asking the question, how might we create a redevelopment strategy for city-owned properties in Pleasant Street and Porter's neighborhoods that ensures existing residents, people with low and moderate incomes, and people marginalized based on race and ethnicity will share in the benefits of neighborhood growth? And some of the underpinning ideas of this question is another question, really. And, if we ensure equitable development for the folks on our map, the margins of our city, the low income and folks racially and ethnically marginalized, if we ensure quality of life and equitable development for these folks, shouldn't we expect folks in the center who are less marginalized to also benefit? And so it's sort of an idea that we can grow together if we pursue equitable development, or at least that's the question. And so what do I mean by redevelopment strategy? And this, I'll go back. So we're creating a redevelopment strategy as a part of this scope. And let's talk about what we kind of mean by redevelopment strategy. And actually, let me close this window. Okay. So building development, it's somewhat of a complex process. And even after 5-6 years of being a professional planner, I'm still learning every day what that process looks like and who's involved in that process. So we want to make an effort to boil that process down, make it a little more tangible, a little more simple, and ask the community to weigh in on that process each step of the way. So what I'm showing here, using Legos as sort of my motif, is what I would call a redevelopment strategy. And it's essentially 7 milestones that you might expect to work through as you develop a property. And it starts with acquiring the land. And in this case, the city owns the land. So the commission is essentially the owner. Ultimately, the people are the owner. And it will be important that the commission basically decide on how to proceed. We should then expect that there's a certain degree of partnerships and contracting that would happen. With development, there might be a lot of liability involved, and so partnerships and contracts become a really important aspect of the development process. And so we want to ask the question with our public, like, what are the partnerships that will enhance our ability to achieve equitable development? And how will we limit our liability and just some of the issues associated with development? And then moving into the design phase, that's usually where I come in as a planner, is helping sort of conceive site plan and design. And in this scope, and part of our work this summer will be to present some design ideas for these sites. Well, we want to ask the question, how do we program and design these sites for equitable development? And what does that look like? We've talked a little bit tonight about approvals, the role that the city will play in entitling approving entitlements, or changing the zoning in some cases. Like I said, the Porters is public service, so there's a chance that would require a rezone. And so we would ask the question, what permits and approvals do we need from City Commission to pursue development? Moving to finance. Once you have the approvals, you need money to basically to buy the construction and the materials and so forth. And so we'll ask the question, how do we pay for the cost of production? Again, these are questions we're asking, but we also want to invite the community to ask and maybe even hopefully add additional questions to each of these milestones. And once you have finance, whether it's equity or debt or maybe grants and so forth, you then can open up the doors to actually build and pay for, furnish the labor and the materials to build. And I'm sure we're familiar with rising construction costs and so forth. And so this is becoming increasingly complicated, but we want to, during this phase, we want to ask, like, who will furnish the labor and materials? Are there local builders, developers, or I'm sorry, are there local builders? Are there local materials? Where are we going to get these materials? How do we ensure that, like, the labor practices that are tied to the development of these sites are proper and equitable? And then finally, sort of, I guess the end goal, I won't say the end goal, but the end goal of redevelopment in terms of just getting something built, we would start to ask questions around the sale or the lease of the spaces of the buildings. And we'd ask questions like, well, what is the ownership model? Do we expect this to be affordable in perpetuity? Do we expect this to be leased? What is our target price? What does affordability mean? That's a very fantastic conversation to have. What assistance should the city or the CRA or some other partner provide in providing down payment assistance or even the wraparound services that might entail helping folks gain the credit they need to buy a house, or just providing some of the educational services. That sort of is part of the sale and the lease side of things. And so really, again, what we're trying to do is boil down what seemingly is a complicated process of starting with a piece of land and ending up with a building. We want to invite the community in on that process to ask questions, poke around each of these milestones, and let's learn together about what it means to build. So I should have mentioned this at the top of my presentation today. We're developing this community engagement plan using the city's community engagement guidebook, and you might be familiar with that. We spoke with Ann Wolf, who's the principal draft writer of this plan of the community engagement guidebook, and I believe it's still in draft form. So this is one of the first or initial engagement processes that's molded and shaped in the frame of this guidebook. But what that guidebook really emphasizes is who will benefit, who will be impacted negatively from a planning project. How do we measure how inclusive the process is? And one of the ways to do that is to look at the demographic profile of the neighborhood now. And as we engage the community, we're asking questions to ensure that we're actually engaging a representative share of the neighborhood. And so what you see here are two bars. The top bar is what we looked at the census tract for Pleasant Street, and you can see it tends to be more female, tends to be Black or African American, working age, workforce age folks are the overwhelming majority of residents. And there is a strong sort of renter occupied ownership pattern. And then for porters, and I will caveat that, because we're looking at census tracts, sometimes the margin of error is really high compared to the total size of the population. I won't go into that. But with respect to porters, interestingly, it's even more strongly female. The portion of porters of the census tract we looked at was primarily white, and again, a strong workforce age range, 18 to 64. Renter occupied is also sort of the more representative housing tenure in this area. And so we'll use this to frame on the back end when we've done our engagement. Did we actually, did we talk to mostly females? Did we talk to, and more than just talk to, which we'll get into that, essentially did the folks who engaged in this, do they represent the neighborhood, and do they represent our target audience? And in this case, we've kind of defined 3 target audiences, and they're based on what we perceive would be sort of the level of impact you might expect from development at these 2 sites. And so impact when we say impact, we mean quality of life and sort of cultural, and that includes sort of cultural impacts, economic impacts, and physical impacts. Actually, physically, we're physically changing the built environment, and that will have impacts. And certainly as we continue to talk about the economic and political impacts, there's a lot of conversation around potential displacement that we will want to be aware of. And so we have three target audiences. Our first is the day-to-day stakeholder. These are folks who live or work on the same street as these development projects, or they routinely walk or ride by these sites. And these are folks who are likely to experience the greatest impact from redevelopment. We think this day-to-day stakeholder should also include the prospective, the people who might move to this neighborhood, the prospective owners and renters. Maybe they're seeking housing now and can't find it. We would throw them, the prospective people, into the day-to-day stakeholders. Then we have neighborhood stakeholders. These are folks with social and cultural connections to the surrounding neighborhoods who might also experience quality of life and economic impacts from redevelopment. So think of folks who they have family members in this neighborhood, or they live on the edge of the neighborhood, or they go to church in this neighborhood. They will experience impacts, and we want to hear from them. And then finally, the city stakeholders, the folks who hold the city accountable for solving these problems and for addressing these problems and for essentially, fulfilling their public commitments. And so this might include folks involved in other city housing projects, such as the comprehensive plan update. And we want all three of these groups to participate in this endeavor. And so one thing I'll point out in the guidebook, the Gainesville guidebook, and if you've geeked out on planning, you might also be, you might have seen something like this before, this sort of ladder or levels of participation. This is to basically communicate that ultimately we want to empower the community to make decisions about their community. Because of the scope of this project, our aim is to essentially engage our day-to-day stakeholders as collaborators, people who will participate in actually helping us design and design these sites and so forth. We expect that neighborhood stakeholders will have an opportunity to involve in this process. We will consult city stakeholders, and we've been doing that thus far, especially speaking with all sorts of folks literally at the city. And of course, we want to inform all stakeholders. So I guess this slide is intended to show that there are levels of participation we want to achieve. And in this case, the highest level we want to make sure we achieve is to collaborate with our day-to-day stakeholders. I'm happy to answer questions on that. So what are the methods we're going to employ? Like I said, kind of in the first slide, this is a little, but what we would hope for, a loud engagement process. It's a little in the sense that we're talking about small sites, and we're also talking about a somewhat small scope in terms of just our work. But we want it to have sort of a loud impact. So our methods, we have three methods: meeting methods, data collection methods, and communication methods. So for meeting, we will host a design charrette on the site, on both sites, one design charrette per site. And we're also going to host an open house once we have both sites, like a design for both sites, and we have that that draft redevelopment strategy. We're going to host an open house to invite more folks to collaborate, involve, and consult. And then on the data collection side, we're using this fancy word called nominal group technique. That was from the guidebook. That basically just means group discussions that will result in voting, and folks will actually have an opportunity to vote on different things along that continuum, along that redevelopment strategy from land to sale. We'll basically be asking folks to vote on different things. We will also we will have a survey with a comment card or a comment form, and we will continue to conduct interviews with people one-on-one. And then on our communication methods, we want to pay attention to accessibility. We want to pay attention to and when I say accessibility, not only just access to the internet or access to the project, but making sure that folks with various hearing or other accessibility needs can still participate. So we'll be doing an announcement sign, which I'll show you what that means. Some fact sheets that will help us sort of frame the information and sort of the education side of this process. We'll have a flyer with a direct mailer, and we'll have a little but loud website, a sort of a lean website that will be sort of a hub for folks to access this information. And along with that, there'll be, you can call or email the project managers and we'll respond. So to give you the sense of the timeline, we basically kicked this off in April. Just in interviewing with city staff, and Chelsea was so fantastic in setting up so many great interviews with city staff. I think that's really helped us mold something special here. So thank you, Chelsea. We'll be moving as we go into June. We'll be starting to promote the design charrette so we can get folks out to the site to participate. We'll host the design charrette in July, and basically that will be a 2-day on-site collaborative workshop at each location, and they'll happen on different weekends or different weeks. And then going toward August, we will draft our redevelopment strategy, and it'll sort of be a framework following those like Lego pieces I showed you earlier. And then finally in August, we'll host that open house that presents basically the redevelopment strategy. We hope that will reflect the needs and aspirations of our target audience. And to kind of show you graphically some of the ideas we're thinking. So this is just a look at one of the sites. This is the Porter site. To our first engagement with, again, we want to engage these day-to-day stakeholders. So our thought was, let's place essentially a real estate sign on this property, but rather than your typical for sale real estate sign, this sign actually asks a question and invites you to answer the question or ask another question. And so at least 4 weeks in advance of the charrette, we would like to post this real estate sign on the property. It would have a take one flyer to it, and actually the flyer would be a fact sheet on one side, and then on the flip side, it would be a physical survey of the site on a piece of graph paper. And so folks, there'll be some prompts on that survey to ask people questions and allow people to basically either draw or indicate certain preferences they might have for site development, or just give them kind of information about what the site is. Like, just let's dig deeper. What is this site? What's on it? What are these trees? Which ones are heritage trees? So forth, you know? But this will be sort of just a passive invitation to folks who happen upon the site on their regular life. And it's hopefully not going to be something that's intrusive. Like ideally the real estate sign sort of is a scale and sort of a character that is not intrusive, but inviting. Then on the actual day, so I kind of transitioned to the day, I tried to show here that we would have a very sort of open format design charrette, which would feature movable furniture. And my father-in-law built some of these boxes the other day. They're pretty lightweight, and they sort of lend themselves to kind of creating like a movable space, and you can kind of have little living rooms set up throughout the space to have conversations around housing affordability and basically the equitable redevelopment. We're also going to have stakes and string placed on the ground to show different layouts of building layouts and designs, and that way people can kind of see, okay, well, which trees are we proposing? Like, what would the sort of the scale be of these buildings? And folks will be invited to move them around and redesign them as they choose. And that will sort of alongside the stakes and the movable furniture, we'll have different kiosks with the fact sheets sort of reproduced as large. I know I will hurry up. I have one more slide. So the fact sheets will be reproduced as sort of kiosks, and those will provide information, but also invite sort of community to share their voice and collaborate ultimately. So just to kind of look at that kind of as in a layout. On the left side of your screen, you see the on-site announcement sign. Again, just imagine a real estate sign, but rather than for sale, maybe we ask a question and we try to invite folks. And all of this is up for reinterpretation in terms of editing and so forth. But just as a first cut, the question we might ask is, our neighborhood is growing. how can we grow it together? Gainesville CRA wants to know. The idea that we know it's growing but we don't need to displace anyone for it to grow. How might we grow it together? The Take One flyer, again, that just shows kind of, it would be a fact sheet with a survey. You can kind of get a sense for the material we'd be using for the workshop furniture. It's just lightweight wood with these fasteners that are easy to put on and take off. The string and the stakes would help us sort of physically show space and physically show potential development. And then all these boards, these conversation boards and dot voting boards would have questions about neighborhood culture and identity, who's looking for housing in Gainesville, what is affordable. We've been doing, on the side, we've been doing these case studies. We've been interviewing with community land trusts and other city CRAs in the state, mostly in Orlando actually, and even some market private developers to understand like how are they going about redevelopment? What are the steps they're taking along that Lego redevelopment strategy? And we want to illuminate what we've been learning and share that information. And then let's talk about the products and the materials and some of the like nitty gritty like architectural things. So we'll talk about that. We also have this rate this tree exercise. It's just, we want to invite the city arborist out to make sure to identify all the heritage trees and then have folks sort of rate the tree or sort of express their value of the trees. We'll have refreshments and supplies. Of course, COVID is still upon us. Our team is fully vaccinated. We will still, provide supplies to ensure safety for all the folks, and some personnel as well will help with that. But I think that's my last slide. And I suppose the question for you is, do you have any questions, and might you approve of this public engagement plan? And I think there's a more detailed version in your agenda item or something along those lines. So I will stop there.
Thank you. You have a very in-depth, tangible, and thoughtful process of gaining community engagement. Do you have any questions from the board?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I'm from reading this. You're talking about 4 houses. This presentation about the housing in Pleasant Street and Porter's, 2 in each community.
I apologize. I've tried to crank up my volume. I was not able to hear the question.
Oh, the presentation you just made, thank you for it. It was in depth. This is for 4 houses, 2 in Porter's and 2 in Pleasant Street. Am I correct?
Well, I guess we would, I don't think that's been decided yet in terms of what the program might be. I think certainly housing in both cases is a component. We've heard, and we did I will mention, we've read through, not only the housing action plan, but a lot of the documentation that the CRA has developed over the last few years, including the work done with UF in Porter's. And so we've at least heard loud and clear that certainly housing of some kind, floor area meant for housing, should be included on both of these sites.
Thank you.
I will add for the Pleasant Street site, there's also been conversation around maybe some commercial, being that was a historic main street, and there are existing commercial uses on that street. Perhaps there's an equitable development model that incorporates additional commercial, and we've been calling it sort of live work, where it would blend space for living, but also space for working or kind of commercial uses. If that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'm personally excited to see what comes out of this. I think the process you have will engage a lot of people at a level that people haven't been engaged before. Tangibly sitting in a living room, asking what you want it to look like. So it's going to be a fascinating process. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Palmer?
Maybe a little tongue-in-cheek, but if this goes well, this seems like a very thorough community engagement plan. If this goes well, I'd love to see us try and do this for some of our bigger projects. Yeah. I haven't seen this level of comprehensiveness and almost any of the community, well, not any of the community engagement, but I think this will be really interesting to see how this goes for the future.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blount?
I think I understood this is intended to be affordable or workforce housing. Will the price point be targeted at the 30, 50, or 80% of AMI level?
I love that question. Thank you for asking it. We want to hear from the folks who participate on that issue. You know, and I think I'm not trying to skirt that question because I think it's like probably the most important question, or one of them. I guess, you know, we want to make this process very transparent. And when I say process, like what redevelopment is, like how do we go from land to building, and what does that cost? What does that entail? And if we do have a target, let's say 80% the AMI, what does that mean from the perspective of the city or from the partnerships that we establish to achieve that? What does that entail? It's almost like a challenge to us that we would incorporate into the redevelopment strategy. And so hopefully the strategy, and maybe that just needs to be a straight up goal, is like, let's say 80%. That's our goal. We will try to show a redevelopment strategy that hits that goal. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are. But I guess the short answer is that we haven't conceived of that specific goal at this stage. What do you?
I wasn't expecting to have it bounce back at me. I'd probably go with 50%, but I mean that needs some thought and discussion.
All right, any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. Looks good.
Thank you for your time.
I'm sure you'll have people participating.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next item on the agenda is Tremel Web Development Agreement request for Fifth Avenue. Who's teeing that up?
Good evening, Chair Sarah Vidal. So I'm just going to introduce the item. I wanted to just state that developers are not asking for the board to make a decision tonight. Tonight's presentation is really an update on this project, and also an update on the opportunity, as the item states, to potentially take the streetscape that the CRA completed that starts in Pleasant Street, goes through Fifth Avenue to 10th Street, but completing it from 10th to 13th Street, and a few other items. So I won't get into the details or belabor this, but I just wanted to kind of set this up. Mr. Diedenbach from CHW is going to be giving the presentation, and we'll go into the project. It's been a long time since the board, I think, has heard anything about the Seminary Lane redevelopment and this opportunity. So without further ado, I will turn the meeting over. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Diedenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jerry Diedenbach here on behalf of Tremel Web. And in the interest of, as you said earlier, everyone's bedtime, this isn't going to be a long presentation this evening. We're here to let you know that we are underway. The project is moving forward. Clearing has begun on the properties on the Fifth Avenue corridor there, east of 13th Street. In your packet, there is a PDF, and I believe Dan has the control, or maybe Tricia. And I was going to cover that quickly and talk to you about the opportunities that exist as an informational item and get your opinion on what direction we should take. For those of you who aren't familiar with the project encompasses about 6.5 acres that is surrounding the 5th Avenue and 12th Street intersection. The areas in blue are the areas that are moving forward initially. In the upper left-hand corner, we call that Building A. In the lower right-hand corner, Building B. The building that is to the immediate west of the GRU elevated storage tank is C. Affordable housing will be proposed and built on the north side of Fifth Avenue in the light purple area. And in the southwest quadrant of the intersection, we're building a community park. Could I have the next slide, please? So the extent of our work with this will be nearly to 13th Street, just to the eastern edge of the property of Sweet Berries. There are other properties along the Fifth Avenue corridor that are developing, specifically on the other side. If you've looked at the intersection of 5th and 13th, south of the gate, Landmark Properties is building the Mark there. And we are working with them also. We have frontage along 12th Street that extends up about a half of a block, and then south of Fifth Avenue to the area that would be co-terminus with our community park, or the right-of-way of about 4th Place. Next slide, please. The city's base code-compliant plan only seeks to replace with sidewalks, limited street trees, and street lighting. If you have walked, cycled, or driven down Fifth Avenue, you know that it has very substandard sidewalks throughout the corridor. In many cases along the corridor, the sidewalks are, I would say, punctuated by the fact that there are utility poles that exist in the middle of what are in some places 3 and 4 foot sidewalks. Code compliance would have us bring those sidewalks back to a wider width and be consistent with the transect zoning in the area. When the city rezoned approximately 1,700 acres of the city of Gainesville, they put an urban transect zone category over this area. The restoration of these sidewalks will include a landscape strip at the back of the curb, a sidewalk, and then a building frontage zone. So buildings will be about 22 to 27 feet back from the edge of curb. And if you've driven the Fifth Avenue corridor, you know that the right-of-way corridor there is very, very thin. In fact, a lot of the pavement in the Fifth Avenue corridor is actually paved into the curb pans to give the roadway the width there for travel. What we're here to ask you all tonight is, would you like to see us work with the CRA and continue and complete the CRA's plan, which terminates east of this project at approximately 10th Street? It's our goal to try to do the best project possible, which would mean coming through, if I could have the next slide, please. Coming through with the matching sidewalks that are already existing near the former CRA building. We would pick that effort up at about 10th Street intersection and carry that almost to 13th Street. We would almost go to 13th Street because we don't have any physical control over the last property, which is Sweet Berries. And there is a property on the south side, it used to be Mr. Goodbike, that's under redevelopment consideration right now by another developer. So if they were to do that, our presumption would be that they would want to redevelop and participate in the CRA plan. So these conceptual streetscapes that we are showing you tonight are by no means the finished product of what we're proposing. But knowing the nature of the project and the timing of this project, we also are keenly aware of the fact that Gainesville Regional Utilities is in the process of working with the CRA to redo the security fencing and the border around the elevated storage tank that sits just east of Building C. And they're going to be bringing that to a higher standard than the chain link fence with the slats in it and barbed wire on it. In fact, and Sarah can correct me if I have this incorrect, I believe the CRA and GRU worked with an artist who actually makes fences. It's a vandalism and breach-proof fence, meaning that you can't climb it to get into that area. So that's going to increase the urban realm by pulling that fence back and placing it tighter around the elevated storage tank there. We also realize that the city of Gainesville has recently entertained a request for qualifications for a heritage trail consultant. This area of Fifth Avenue is part of the Heritage Trail, and several years ago, the CRA put together a Heritage Trail plan. We do not want to take our plans forward and negate any opportunity or close the opportunity or the door on working collaboratively with the CRA, the city, and GRU as we move forward. Can I have the next slide, please? So as we work forward, and this will take probably about 20 to 24 months, but we're here tonight as an informational item to open up a dialogue with you all. We would like to know the level of involvement you would like to see us pursue. We could certainly move forward with just a code compliant project, but that is not the will of what Tremel Webb wants to do with the property. They want to complete the plans that the CRA have put in place for Fifth Avenue. They want to work with Gainesville Regional Utilities to incorporate the new fencing design and the pedestrian and urban realm at the base of the water tower. And then lastly, we know that it's going to take some time for the city to catch up and get a consultant on board for the Heritage Trail. We would like to work in concert to create a gateway feature or other features along with our streetscape that would work in concert with the city's ultimate plan and the CRA's plan for creating the Heritage Trail, which would go through this area. So I told you I would be quick. We are here to listen more than we are to talk. We're here to let you know that we wish to work forward in a spirit of collaboration. It goes without saying that the reinvestment in this property will bring a tremendously higher return on the tax base inside the district here. I think it's about 65 to 66 times of what is generated today off those properties when this project is completed. We would like to see this be a catalyst to complete the actions that the CRA began years ago and actually finalize and help the Fifth Avenue corridor here reach its highest state for aesthetics, pedestrian safety, and urban realm. So with that, myself and Mr. Arnheim are here to listen to your comments, answer any questions we may have, and hopefully then come back to you and continue to collaborate with the CRA, GRU, and others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have comments, suggestions?
I would just say that I'm one to want to seize every opportunity to amp up our infrastructure. When you put things off, they often get put off for a lot longer time than you would like. So I like the idea of the collaboration for the street, the sidewalks, and the fencing, and I would be supportive of that.
Mr. Chair, I left one item out there, and I thought that our former colleague of the CAC and City Commission would say, what about undergrounding the utilities? Because as you know,
our minds.
Yeah. Oh, it always crosses my mind.
As you know, the utilities are all.
In fact, Ms. Fox has got my word on that one just a few minutes ago.
Those are all aerial hung utilities on old poles there that come up through the center of sidewalks, and many times, I mean, the poles are right there. And so a component of this plan would be to take and underground the utilities through there so that the tree canopy can be restored.
Well, let me just add that I don't think that's the least appreciated and understood, the impact of overhead utilities in a given area. Even though we're kind of blind to it, subconsciously we absorb it, and it tells you something about that area that is not positive.
Absolutely.
It really does. And we're so used to it, but we still absorb it, and it makes a big difference in the value and the quality of life in that area.
Especially since we're building a park effectively in the southwest quadrant of the intersection as a gateway park.
Absolutely.
We want to get those trees that don't have that scalloped out horseshoe shape in them from the power lines going through the trees that you see on 12th.
I have a question. I know when they were doing the Cade Museum, and they had this rendering of how the area would look. Well, if you count it right down the street from the Cotton Club, and that is 8th Street, the road is horrible with all the trees almost in the middle of the road. We have to If you go in that area, you have to go in the ditch until the other cars pass. And that is too close to Depot for that road to look the way it does. So I wish you all would put that on the radar as well. Thank you.
That's 8th Street.
8th, southeast 8th.
All right, I'll start on the left and work my way right. Mr. Blount?
Two questions, please. Will the water tower continue to have that giant 4G or 5G or whatever array is on top of there?
Mr. Chair, I do not know whether the lease for the cell phone Yagis that are on there.
That would be a question for GRU.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a question for GRU. I don't know about their contractual relationship, and I don't know if that's city relays for radios too, or just cell phones.
I just always think about that because I once had a colleague who had the house next door, and she said her breast cancer was connected to that energy. And across the street there, this image shows 8 units under the label affordable housing. Is that continuing to be the plan? And will the price point of those, same question as the last person, will the price point of those be aimed at 30, 50, or 80% of area median? And no kicking it back to me.
Okay. No. I won't kick that one back, but I will tell you that we don't have an answer for that yet because we're exploring how to get as many units on the north side as possible. There were platted lots in the northeast quadrant of the 5th Avenue and 12th Street intersection. Given the transect zoning on there, we are looking at the opportunity of can we put duplexes or triplexes or walk-up townhomes on there to get as many dwelling units as possible in that limited space. While I'm here, it wasn't a part of the agenda discussion here, but there are also unused city lots that we discussed with Ms. Vidal during the course of our early discussions. I believe the CRA holds a lot on the north side and the city has a lot, and there's actually a piece of dead-end right-of-way in there. If you would like to have us pursue that discussion too, because what good is a 35-foot lot when we're talking about this scenario? If we can add that to what we're doing and add more affordable housing on the north side, tell us to do that. Because, if we get 12, if we get 10, if we get 14, the more we get, the better. So we're still pursuing how to mostly densify that northeast quadrant with the type of housing unit that will be most readily received by the community, as well as trying to utilize that space as best possible. So we're continuing to push the envelope there, Mr. Chair.
One more little point. If you decide to put a particular name on that row of houses, considering the house that's right behind it, I would really love to see it called Buchanan Row, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Buchanan Road.
Joe Buchanan.
Buchanan, Joel.
Joel, but his name is really Marcus. Marcus Joel Buchanan.
What do you reckon, Joel?
I'm sure I can find a more thorough explanation, and I know the significance.
There you go. Member Palmer.
Thanks. This is really great to see. I know, there's a lot of opinions going on about this, and there's it's a very complicated development, I would say is probably a good word to describe it. I actually do really appreciate the effort that's gone into thinking about the sidewalks and everything. I think that's to me that's a great value add to something that is kind of a I know some people are going to have trouble swallowing it. It just is what it is. Personally, I agree with you. I mean, I would like to extend the additional affordable housing there. I would like to see as much, a big plan, as big of a plan for some affordable housing there as possible. I think that's probably going to be almost everybody's concern around this development is going to be the neighborhood impact on affordable housing. And I mean, I'm sure you know that as well, but I think the more you can do there, the better that's going to look.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and a good point was brought up there. that I really like that Lego slide that the previous group had. There's another block that I want to see, and I did take a picture so I can reproduce that. It's leverage. When you're at this point in a project and a project is moving forward, leverage the project to get as much as you can for the community. Because in the words of the mayor about 2 weeks ago sitting there, these are 50-year, 70-year, 100-year decisions. What we do today affects that pedestrian realm every single day moving into the future. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Do you need a motion here? It's going to be tricky to formulate this one.
I think he's happy to get our recommendations.
And I have people watching that are taking notes.
He's got people watching to go
Okay.
back and say, you know, go take this as far as you can and come back with a recommendation that would make everybody here excited.
And we'll be back with 3D renderings of the existing conditions and diagrammatic schematics of, you know, what sidewalks are changing and where.
And the Buchanan nameplate.
Okay. Any other comments?
It's great.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Wonderful job.
We will continue to come back and represent to you. And we will also be back with the other side of 13th Street because that is an important component of the Fifth Avenue neighborhood heading west. So we want that gateway coming down into the university and the campus area at Fifth to be enhanced. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's one more item, and we don't have to go through the whole item. It's the Downtown Strategic Plan Project Update. I don't think anybody's here to give us the update.
No.
But they want a representative from this committee, and I don't want to be it.
Mr. Chair,
I was gonna ask Mr. Nielsen to do it.
I recommend Warren Nielsen.
Boy, if that didn't ambush, I was going to get you.
No, but we've asked Warren, he's got experience.
I mean,
That's fine, I'm open. My point is, it's to this board, but it's, they need a representative, and it sounds like it's gonna be an interesting project as they advance it.
I think it should be the chair or the vice chair, and you said you definitely don't want it.
I do not.
Stephanie, are you still here?
No.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair-
I'm
Yes,
here.
yes, I'm still here, and I'm fine with Mr. Nielsen.
Okay.
Could we also talk about nominating Chairperson Jacobs, since he has so much interest in the downtown area, being a local business owner?
We can put it up for a vote. Are there other nominees?
You know, if it needs to be a vice chair, you know, there's neighbors invited by the core neighbor group that relate to.
So what I'm told that is that some of these meetings aren't publicly announced, and some of the work groups, and we would have to coordinate. I would encourage everyone to be able to go when they can, but just be advised if you have another representative there from this committee, you've got sunshine issues.
You have to be silent.
No, we have one.
So wait, if one person goes,
We're sending an official member to go.
right, and so us as people trying to attend it who, you know, may live and or work in downtown.
I think you would have to be, I don't know if it matters if you're there, you can't talk to somebody else, you can't interface with them.
Mr. Chair, how many have to go?
You can be at the meeting, you just have to stay away from other members.
Exactly, Mr.
So,
Chair,
Mr.
that's
Chair-
exactly correct.
So, Mr. Chair, how many have to go?
One official appointment.
Okay, so I move Jacob Idy be appointed to that board, that position.
Okay, well, we're filling a slate, so.
All right, cool.
We've got Jacob as one, Warren is one. Is there anybody else that wants to be on the slate?
Is Jacob interested?
He
just said
is.
he was.
Oh, I didn't hear him, sweetie. I'm not there. I'm on the that's what I'm asking.
Do we want to write?
I guess I'd like to ask, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't.
What about Jason Allen Tufts? Is Jason interested?
No, I'm not interested.
He's not interested.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you for
Yes.
asking that.
I don't know, the lights must not be working now.
They're not working.
I know, well, I live very near downtown. I know Mr. Palmer has a business downtown. I'd like to ask who else in this body has residence or business very close to the downtown area. So Jacob's there too.
I have, but I don't.
Does this representative come back and report to us, or like what's going on at the next meeting?
This representative will be, probably ask Mr. Breckfield to explain. This representative is going to be a participating, voting member of this committee to advance this project. So it's not just a reporting structure.
The neighborhood advisory group, Mr. Chair, is it's sort of like a steering committee for the project. So the consultant is going to bring information to that group and try to get, you know, certain information and or decision points steered by this group. And so, and the idea is that we're going to have this core group, and then we're asking the core group to fill out the rest of the neighborhood advisory board with other suggested members.
Hey, Eric, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir. Or Mr. Chair.
So what's a specific project? So somebody say what?
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Brenda Gomez, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were saying something, Mr. Chair.
No.
My question is, can somebody living, working downtown, whoever it is, but what specific projects, Eric, are we talking about from the Neighborhood Advisory Committee? Can you be more specific?
Well, the neighborhood, Mr. Chair, the neighborhood advisory group is just going to be the steering committee for this downtown strategic planning effort. So we're getting ready to launch the engagement right now, and we're trying to put the steering committee together to help us launch the engagement, inform us about who we should be talking to, what kinds of issues we need to be discussing, what are the parameters of the project. You'll notice in your backup, which is the presentation is there that we made originally, there's a sense of the geography we're talking about, all those types of issues. We're looking for some steering on that, and the consultant is as well. By the way, the consultant's also going to hold a bunch of other meetings, not only with the steering committee. They're going to hold meetings with stakeholders. They're going to hold meetings with the greater community as well. So there's a whole layered approach to engagement here.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, Eric, so that means you would like for us to appoint somebody who could do the outreach and bring the information, get out into the neighborhood and do the outreach to the people that lives in that area.
That would be excellent. And then also this person with the other 4 or 5 members would fill out that group, because we need about 10 or I think we're talking about 12 or 15 total members on the steering committee. So we have these 5, the group of 5 basically, and then the group of 5 will suggest other appointments. And there's some criteria in there. We would like it a diverse body basically. And so we're looking for that.
What do you expect the time commitment to be?
For the steering committee, when you look at the timeline that's in the backup, we're probably talking about a year's engagement. The steering committee is only going to meet probably 4 to 6 times during the year, so maybe once every couple of months, something like that, bi-monthly.
Okay. Mr. Blount, you have your thing on again? Or is that
I think it was made clear that I was suggesting that the others thought so too. It should be somebody, tightly connected with downtown area on a regular basis.
Okay. How do y'all want to do this? I've got 2 names that have been floated to both individual candidates. Jacob, Warren, both still willing to serve?
You can raise your hands.
Just vote of hands. All right. All those in favor of Mr. Ide?
Aye. Since I can't raise my hand, Mr. Chair.
How you raise it?
I think he's got.
Just say aye, Stephanie.
Aye.
And all those in favor of Mr. Nielsen? Mr. Ide has the votes. So,
Good job,
sir.
Jacob.
All right, let's see here. We pushed everything else. Member Brenda Gomez, you had something you wanted to say with member comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm hearing something. I don't know if that's somebody's phone or what. Mr. Chair, say that again. I'm sorry. I heard it's kind of
You
buzzing.
expressed desire to bring up something in member comment at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes, sir. So I want to bring to the attention. So last week we had a major thing come before the city commission with respect to Heartwood. And there was a lot of things that were on consent agenda and just a lot of moving parts that were going on. And specifically within the city, we had things like ADUs on the agenda. We also had things that affected Lot 10. And the thing that was really disconcerting that we want to bring into attention is process of important of what's coming before us, what's coming before members of the public, because there was really some lack of transparency and good. First of all, we need to give some props to our newly elected commissioner, Desmond Duncan Walker, as well as Commissioner Gail Simmons, for recognizing that there was a major missing component, especially with things that are within the GCRA area affecting it. We would have had a major project of a potential high-rise building going up on Lot 10 that was on consent agenda that was never, ever brought before the light of day that had certain developers. So when I hear people like Member Dixon that talk about the height of certain buildings, we have out-of-town developers proposing major projects. And Lot 10 has been a debacle for many years. So I just bring it to light that we all need to exercise diligence and pay attention to what's going on. But it was just disconcerting that we have things on a consent agenda that even the commissioners didn't even know. And it took our newly elected commissioner, Desmond Duncan Walker, to recognize it's like, hey, wait a minute, this affects not only just the GCRA area, but our overall community. It affects the very things that we're talking about tonight. It affects the affordable housing, affects the business district. So just things of that nature. So I guess for all of us, it's transparency and open government is always a good thing. But when doing things that appear to be clandestine and on consent agenda, that's never good. So just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Member Bush.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be quick. I just wanted to, ask my fellow members of the board if it may make sense to have some of these project updates come as maybe a quarterly workshop of the board, separate the action items from the informational items, because these agendas are getting so heavy that we're not getting to items, and it hasn't just happened once, it's happened multiple times. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as a potential way to be more efficient in our meetings. If people would be open to having a quarterly workshop for project updates and informational items. And also, we have the agendas in advance. We have the materials in advance. I don't feel that we need the presentations to go quite so long. So if there could be some consideration to keeping the presentations, to 10 minutes or less, so that we have more time for discussion. And, we're reading the materials in advance, and so it's repetitive to come in here and then listen to the full presentation. So just to be efficient and respectful of everybody's time, those would be some of my recommendations.
Thank you. Good points. I do want to say, the reason a number of these are on the agenda is because I expressed a desire to have Caper come back and bring presentations to this board, because this board wasn't getting that information, and I was hearing from you all confusion, consternation, and it wasn't going well the last update we got, which is 4 lines of type. So I'm open to suggestions on whether we don't want that and we just let it go like it goes, or we do in another format on a Saturday or a different day of the week or whatever. I'm open to that. It seems like having that level of communication is important, or we don't know what's going on, and it's not really Caper's fault if we're not asking to stay updated. So,
Mr. Chair, we get the information. It's sent out. So we read everything that they read back to us on their presentation.
That's the presentation part. We can be more efficient.
Yeah, I think they don't.
I think though, I don't want to mix up something like to Member Bush's point though. The fact that what the chair was just saying is that we weren't at the time getting things, and we had a desire to get the information. So yes, we could say it's in the backup. I don't want us to be dismissive of it, because it looked like one of the members was just shaking her head like she didn't get it. But my point is Member Bush's point, I think for efficiency purposes, I agree with you. Maybe if we had action items, we can work on them, and then just things that we need to get updated. Unless it's a higher priority item, it just depends on what it is. But I agree with you. Absolutely.
We have other member comment.
Mr. Chair, I move for adjournment.
Without objection? Done.
Thank you.